Chapter 547. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that can't be found online are available here. Fortunately, Eunuch Chin came over at this time. Little Deng, why are you still standing here? Didn't I tell you to smash walnuts? Eunuch Chin scolded the little eunuch, then saluted Princess Ning'an with cupped hands. Princess, did this useless servant offend you? Princess Ning'an said gently. No, you're called Little Deng, right? I like it very much. Little Deng was flattered. Eunuch Chin hurriedly said to Little Deng. Quickly thank the princess for her favor. Yes. Yes. Little Deng knelt and kowtowed to Princess Ning'an. Thank you for your favor, princess. You may leave. Princess Ning'an said. Yes. Little Deng retreated. Eunuch Chin smiled at Princess Ning'an. Princess, you've come a bit late today. Are there too many affairs at Iridescent Clouds Hall? If there aren't enough people to serve you, this servant can send you a few capable servants. Princess Ning'an said politely, no need. We don't need that many servants. Eunuch Chin said, this servant watched the princess grow up. If the princess needs anything, there's no need to be polite with this servant. Princess Ning'an faintly tugged at the corner of her lips. Princess Ning'an used to be a lively little girl who liked to laugh, but all her happiness seemed to have disappeared after returning from the frontier fortress. Eunuch Chin rarely saw her smile. Even when she did smile, there was a sense of helplessness and bitterness. Eunuch Chin sighed inwardly. What a sin! If concubine Jing hadn't used the prince consort to set up a handsome trap, Princess Ning'an wouldn't have fallen so low. Eunuch Chin. Princess Ning'an suddenly spoke. Princess, please give me your orders. Eunuch Chin said respectfully. Princess Ning'an said bluntly. Did you notice that Dr. Gu resembles me? I did. Their backs are very similar. Their temperaments are also somewhat similar. Then, Eunuch Chin smiled awkwardly. Princess Ning'an finished for him. Then I have a scar on my face, and I always wear begonia makeup. She has a birthmark on her face, and it's very similar to my begonia makeup. Eunuch Chin laughed dryly. Oh, that's how it is. Actually, Eunuch Chin didn't think it was very similar. It was just that at first glance, there was something on the left side of her face. Princess Ning'an walked forward. Imperial Mother, how did you meet Dr. Gu? Eunuch Chin stepped forward to catch up. When the Empress Dowager and Miss Gu met, this old servant was in the palace, and was not by the Empress Dowager's side. I'm afraid that you will have to personally ask the Empress Dowager about the situation. Eunuch Chin was indeed not by the Empress Dowager's side, but after that, Eunuch Chin had learned the ins and outs of the matter from the Empress Dowager. He didn't tell Princess Ning'an because he felt that he shouldn't be the one to tell her. Princess Ning'an said, if Dr. Gu asked Qin Gonggong how Imperial Mother met me for the first time, would Qin Gonggong also let Dr. Gu personally ask Imperial Mother? Eunuch Chin choked. Princess Ning'an smiled faintly. I was just joking. Eunuch Chin secretly broke into a cold sweat. He thought that her joke was a bit too much. Princess Ning'an said again. Would Miss Gu pretend to be me to make Imperial Mother happy? Eunuch Chin choked again. He smiled and said, Princess, you are of noble birth. How can Miss Gu really be like you? She can't pretend to be you. And she can't pretend to be you. Princess Ning'an said softly. It seems that she can't. I thought that Imperial Mother spoiled her so much because she saw the shadow of my past in her. Eunuch Chin. Princess, don't tell this servant everything that's in your heart. This makes this servant feel very pressured. Fortunately, Princess Ning'an didn't say anything that would make Eunuch Chin speechless for the rest of the journey. Eunuch Chin sent Princess Ning'an to Empress Dowager Zhuang's bedchamber. Little Jing Kong couldn't stay any longer. He didn't sit for long in his grey tant's bedchamber before he ran out of sight. At this time, the bedchamber was exceptionally quiet. Eunuch Chin pushed open the half-closed door. A little palace maid walked out quietly. She bowed to the two and whispered, Princess Eunuch Chin, Empress Dowager Zhuang is resting. Princess Ning'an asked worriedly, so early? Is Imperial Mother not feeling well? The little palace maid shook her head. Dr. Gu just checked the Empress Dowager Zhuang's pulse. She's fine. She's just tired. Princess Ning An's expression cleared a little. She nodded and said, "Then let Imperial Mother rest well. I won't disturb her. I'll come back tomorrow." The little palace maid curtsied. "See you off, Princess." Princess Ning An turned and left Renshou Palace. On the other side, Gu Jiao finished fixing the swing and went to the bedchamber to say goodbye to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Princess Ning'an looked back and saw Gu Jiao enter Empress Dowager Zhuang's bedchamber, as if there was no one around. She didn't need to report and wasn't stopped. Eunuch Qin looked at Princess Ning'an, and then looked at Gu Jiao, who just entered the bedchamber. He was embarrassed. He didn't know how to explain that he didn't treat the two masters differently. It was the Empress Dowager who didn't use the palace rules to restrict Miss Gu. Miss Gu was the same here as she was in Bishui Alley. When she was with Miss Gu, Empress Dowager Zhuang wasn't the powerful Empress Dowager. She was just a grandaunt in Bishui Alley. Unlike when she met Ning'an, Ning'an was the princess and she was the empress. The rules were set from the beginning. Princess Ning'an murmured. It seems that Imperial Mother really loves Dr. Gu. Eunuch Qin hurriedly said. The Empress Dowager loves you the most. You follow the rules. Dr. Gu grew up in the countryside and doesn't understand some palace rules. The Empress Dowager is old and doesn't like to argue with little girls. Princess Ning'an smiled faintly. Eunuch Qin doesn't need to rush to explain. I won't make things difficult for her. Eunuch Qin smiled. That's right, that's right. You're a princess. You're magnanimous and won't argue with a little girl. Princess Ning'an nodded. Eunuch Qin, please. Eunuch Qin bowed. Princess, take care. After Princess Ning'an disappeared into the night, Eunuch Qin returned to the small pond where he raised the tortoises. Empress Dowager Zhuang had been extremely benevolent to him. She even dug a pond for him to raise tortoises. In the palace, no one's mouth could be trusted. If he had anything on his mind, he would only tell this pond of little tortoises. He touched the little tortoise on the edge and sighed. Why do I feel that the princess is a little jealous of Miss Gu? He had a tortoise on his left hand. Miss Gu. He had a tortoise on his right hand. Princess Ning'an, they were all little masters that he had to be loyal to. He had to be fair and not be partial to anyone. He looked at the tortoise on his right hand. I watched you grow up. When you peed your pants, I changed your clothes for you. He looked at the tortoise on his left hand. You saved the Empress Dowager's life. The Empress Dowager doesn't have to live so tirelessly with you. You take care of everything for the Empress Dowager. He looked at the tortoise on his right hand. Since you were young, the Empress Dowager loved you the most. She didn't let you suffer any grievances. He looked at the tortoise on his left hand. Thank you for protecting the Empress Dowager so well. You let the old lady have someone to rely on. Alas, as a loyal servant, he should be more loyal to Princess Ning'an, who he had brought up single-handedly. But why did he like the tortoise on his left hand more? Jiao Jiao. On the carriage back, little Jing Kong sat beside Gu Jiao obediently and pulled Gu Jiao's hand. Aren't you sleepy? Gu Jiao held his little hand. Little Jing Kong shook his head. Gu Jiao said, That's strange. You didn't take a nap today, but you aren't sleepy. Are you scared by the little dog? No. The little dog was very pitiful, but little Jing Kong was not a child who was easily frightened. He opened his dark eyes wide, and his long eyelashes flickered. He pointed at the big trees by the roadside and said, Jiao Jiao, the branches of those trees are broken. Are they in pain? Gu Jiao thought for a while. Maybe, but their branches will grow back in spring. Then what about Hua Hua? Little Jing Kong asked again. Can Hua Hua grow back even if it's cut off? Yes. Gu Jiao nodded. Little Jing Kong stretched out his little head and shook it. What about my little head? Can it grow back too? Gu Jiao's delicate body trembled. That's not possible. Oh. Little Jing Kong sat upright again. He shook his pair of short legs. What about legs? Jiao Jiao? If there are no legs, can they grow back like branches? Gu Jiao touched his little head. It was a pity, but she had to tell him cruelly. They can't grow back. Little Jing Kong lowered his head. Oh. He had just met Huang Fuxian, and he asked such a question. Of course, he was not speaking without thinking. Her Jing Kong was the warmest child in the world. Gu Jiao rubbed his little head. Although they can't grow back, they can stand up again with the help of external forces. Little Jing Kong's dim eyes suddenly brightened. Really? Can he really stand up again? Gu Jiao curved her lips. Yes, as long as he works hard enough. Digression. I just took a look and it's almost over 5,000 votes. I'm looking for a wave of monthly votes. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1088888736. HTML Genius remembered the website address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 548. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels that can't be found on the internet. This matter seems easy from her mouth, but it's very difficult to actually implement it. If a person who lost his legs wants to stand up, he must make a pair of prosthetics suitable for himself. Prosthetics are not the most difficult part. The most difficult part is the socket. At present, there is no suitable material for the socket in the small medicine box. After Xiaoheng visited Empress Dowager Zhuang, he went directly out of the palace. He didn't go back to Bishui Alley, but went to the clinic first. At this time, it was already late at night. The smell of food floated out of the clinic. The girls' school next door hasn't started yet, so it was still deserted. The business of the clinic was good, so people came and went. Xiaoheng entered the lobby and asked the second boss behind the counter. Is Xing Darren still here? Yes. The second boss said. He already knew that Xing Darren turned out to be the second-ranked minister of the Ministry of Justice. He suddenly felt honored to see him. Xiaoheng was not a doctor, so he didn't know much about the treatment process. Therefore, he didn't think it was strange that Minister of the Ministry of Justice was still here. He went up to the second floor and saw Minister Xing and Dr. Song in the innermost room. Minister Xing's arm has already been reset by Dr. Song. The reason why he hasn't left yet was because Dr. Song found other problems with him. After Dr. Song carefully checked his pulse, he gave him a prescription. He asked him if he wanted to take it back or boil it into a pill. The latter costs more money, but it was less troublesome. With Minister Xing's family background, he doesn't lack money, so he asked the medicine boy to boil it. Is it serious? Xiaoheng asked Dr. Song after learning about the situation. Dr. Song said, the problem was discovered early. It's not a big problem. In the future, pay more attention to your diet and take more walks. The most important thing is, speaking of this, Dr. Song looked at Minister Xing seriously, avoid drinking. Minister Xing cleared his throat in embarrassment. Can't I drink even a drop? He had such a hobby. Not even a drop. Dr. Song said without any refutation. Alas. Xing Shangshu sighed helplessly. I've been drinking it for half my life. Isn't it too cruel to suddenly not let me drink a single drop? Xiaoheng persuaded. Song Dafu is also thinking for Darren. Minister Xing waved his hand dejectedly. Alas, all right, I won't drink it. Dr. Song looked at him and said, don't say that you don't want to drink it. Go back and drink it secretly. I will know if you drink it or not the next time I check your pulse. This was Gu Jiao's catchphrase. I would know if you did it or not. The doctors in the clinic had all learned it, and it was quite useful for patients. Minister Xing choked and thought to himself, can I not come to your clinic next time? Dr. Song saw that Xiaoheng had something to say to Xing Shangshu. After telling him all the precautions, he said, I'll go and see how the pills are doing. Then he turned around and went downstairs. Minister Xing pointed at the table opposite him. Lulang, pour me some water. Xiao Heng poured a cup of hot tea for Minister Xing. Minister Xing drank a large cup in one breath. Again another cup. After drinking a total of 3 cups, Minister Xing felt that his throat was not so dry. Am I the one talking, or is he the one talking? Minister Xing thought of being nagged by Dr. Song for the whole afternoon. His head hurt. Xiao Heng didn't answer this question. Minister Xing shook his head and threw Dr. Song to the back of his mind. Then he talked to Xiao Heng about business. You went out just now, what did you find out? Xianla House's Hua Kuei is not dead. On the way here, Xiao Heng had already thought about what information he could say and what information he couldn't say. Minister Xing was shocked. What? That girl named Mo Qianxue is not dead? Then why did they all say? Xiao Heng speculated. The maidservants of Xianla House should have recognized the wrong person. As for Hua Xiao, she should be acting. Minister Xing frowned. Deliberately? So the two of them are in the same group? Xiao Heng. Minister Xing slapped his thigh. I said that there is something wrong with Xianla House. They cooperated to put on such a play. What's their purpose? To deal with me, to deal with Gu Jiao. This trap was set up for him, and it was also set up for Gu Jiao. The mastermind behind the scenes could be Immortal Music House, or it could be some other power. Xiao Heng didn't tell Minister Xing about this for the time being. Minister Xing asked, where is that Hua Kuei? Xiao Heng said, in the medical center. Medical center. Minister Xing lifted the quilt and got out of bed. Which room? Xiao Heng said, in a wing room in the backyard. She was seriously injured at that time, and was picked up by the doctor in the medical center. She is an important witness, so we shouldn't alert the enemy for the time being. Minister Xing was puzzled. Why was she picked up by the doctor in the medical center? Did she do it on purpose? Is there something wrong with this medical center too? As expected of someone from the Ministry of Justice, his logical reasoning was too strong. However, Xiao Heng didn't intend to tell him that Mo Qianxue came for Gu Jiao. It wasn't that he didn't trust Minister Xing's character, but that the time wasn't right. Now was definitely not the best time to investigate Mo Qianxue. Xiao Heng said without changing his expression. There is nothing wrong with the medical center, but it is too famous. Even you, Minister Xing, came here. Other nobles will also come here when they have a headache or fever. Maybe she is waiting for someone here. Minister Xing said thoughtfully. What you said makes sense. Or maybe she just wants to fake her death to hide her identity, so that she can act in secret. After all, who would suspect a dead person? Then I am puzzled. Is the owner of Xianla House dead or not? If he is not dead, where is he? If he is dead, who are they working for? There is also a young owner, Xiao Heng thought in his heart. Xiao Heng said, my wife also works in this medical center. I will tell her later and ask her to send someone to keep an eye on Mo Qianxue. As long as we keep an eye on her, we can always find some clues. Minister Xing thought about it and said, okay, we will do as you say. Tell your wife to be careful. Mo Qianxue is good at fighting. Xiao Heng nodded. I know. Minister Xing asked again. Who else knows about this except you? Empress Dowager. In the bedroom of Rinshou Palace, Eunuch Qin called Empress Dowager Zhuang softly, who was sitting by the window. Empress Dowager Zhuang came back to herself and lightly pinched the 2 candied fruits on the plate. What's the matter? Little Jing Kong was good at complaining, but whenever Empress Dowager Zhuang ate candied fruits, he was always the first one to complain to Gu Jiao. However, the little guy also felt Empress Dowager Zhuang's low mood, and secretly gave her 2 candied fruits. Eunuch Qin said, nothing. Before Miss Gu left, she asked me to make some ginseng soup for you. When the soup is ready, I will serve it to you. Bring it up. Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently. Eunuch Qin turned around and took the ginseng soup from the tray carried by the little eunuch. He walked over and gently put it on Empress Dowager Zhuang's table. Empress Dowager Zhuang did not move. Eunuch Qin smiled. It is not hot. Drink it while it is hot. It will be cold soon. Empress Dowager Zhuang lazily took a sip of the soup. Eunuch Qin said embarrassedly, Miss Gu asked me to reduce the salt. Will it be a bit bad? Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. I have not eaten Miolong's food. I am not qualified to say it is bad. Eunuch Qin. But to be honest, it was really bad. If she had not been poisoned by Xiao Heng's cooking skills, Empress Dowager Zhuang would not drink it. Although Empress Dowager Zhuang disliked it, she still forced herself to drink it. Eunuch Qin smiled from the bottom of his heart. Sure enough, no matter how bad the food was, as long as it was Miss Gu's order, the Empress Dowager would accept it. You were there when Ning'an was young, right? Empress Dowager Zhuang suddenly asked. Qin Gonggong didn't know how the topic had turned to Princess Ning'an. He still then replied. Yes. When the Empress Dowager just entered the palace, this old servant came to serve you. Princess Ning'an was only born a few years later. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked out the window at the crabapple tree covered with a layer of snow and said, Do you remember Ning'an's temperament when she was young? Yes. Eunuch Qin said as if he was familiar with her. She was sweet, lively, active, and couldn't calm down. Otherwise, how could she have bumped into your phoenix carriage in the imperial garden? Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently. It was concubine Jing's plan. How could she have bumped into my carriage? It was a pity that I was young and did not understand the dangers of the palace. I mistook her for a friend. Eunuch Qin observed her expression and asked, Do you regret it, Empress Dowager? Empress Dowager Zhuang tapped the table. Eunuch Qin's sharp eyes poured a cup of hot tea. Empress Dowager Zhuang picked up the cup. What do you regret? Do you regret befriending concubine Jing, or treating her two children well? His Majesty was not concubine Jing's flesh and blood, but since he was under her name, he was indeed her child. Empress Dowager Zhuang continued. There is nothing to regret. The Emperor and Ning'an were indeed doted on when they were young. I lost my son, and it was thanks to them that I was able to walk out of the shadows. Rather than saying that it was concubine Jing's plan, it was better to say that we each took what we needed. Then now what did she mean by saying all this? Eunuch Qin was a bit confused about what Empress Dowager Zhuang was doing. He felt that something was strange. First, Princess Ning'an was strange. Now the Empress Dowager was strange as well. Empress Dowager Zhuang took a sip of tea and said, Ning'an is a paper tiger. Usually, she relies on me to support her and is fearless. But in reality, she is very timid. She is afraid of the dark, of thunder, of pain, and of death. At the mention of this, Eunuch Qin seemed to see little Ning'an crying in front of him. He smiled and said, Princess Ning'an has to light a lamp when she sleeps. This habit is the same as His Majesty. Both siblings are afraid of the dark. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at little Jiu, who was flapping her wings and sweeping away the snow on the crabapple tree. She said, But one night, she suddenly became fearless. I remember very clearly that it was when I was banished to the cold palace by the late emperor. You were punished to do hard labor in the dungeon and weren't by my side. I was sick for a few days. That night, there was a thunderstorm, and Ning'an came to the cold palace alone to see me. There was such a thing? Eunuch Qin was surprised. Empress Dowager Zhuang continued to drink the tea in her hand and said what was in her heart. Usually, it is the two siblings together. If only one person came, it would be Hong-er. So I was very surprised at the time. I asked her why she came. She said, Mother, I came to see you. You are sick. I didn't tell anyone that I was sick. I didn't know how this child knew. So I asked her, Are you not afraid of the dark? She said no. Eunuch Qin smiled and said, The princess is sincere to you. For you. She doesn't even care about being afraid. Little Jiu accidentally fell down while sweeping the snow. It flapped twice in the snow as if it was wronged. It flew over and squatted down by Empress Dowager Zhuang's hand. It seemed to be waiting for Empress Dowager Zhuang to touch its feathers. Empress Dowager Zhuang pushed little Jiu away with a cup with a look of disgust. Little Jiu, who was rejected. Empress Dowager Zhuang said lightly, I also think so. So I was really moved. I swore in my heart that I would love this child for the rest of my life. The more Eunuch Qin listened, the more confused he became. There was nothing wrong with the Empress Dowager's words, but the Empress Dowager's expression didn't seem right. Did Xiao Darren come over today and say something to the Empress Dowager? Xiao Heng sent Minister Xing to the carriage to return to the residence before heading back to Jishui Alley. The alley was filled with the sounds of little Jing Kong. Are you that excited? Xiao Heng shook his head and stepped over the threshold. When he entered the room, he found that Gu Chongqing and Gu Chengfeng had come over. Gu Chongqing came to buy hair growth medicine, and Gu Chengfeng came to see his younger brother and sister. Gu Chongqing and Gu Jiao went to the frontier fortress, leaving Gu Yan alone here. Baby Yan expressed that he was very angry, but he couldn't bear to be angry at Gu Jiao. So Gu Chongqing endured all of his little temper. Gu Chongqing took Gu Yan to ride a horse and accompanied Gu Yan to shoot arrows. Finally, he managed to coax Gu Yan. Then came Gu Xiaobao. When Gu Xiaobao was born, Gu Chongqing wasn't in the capital. After the war broke out, he rushed to the frontier without stopping. So today was the first time he met Gu Xiaobao. However, Gu Xiaobao seemed to be very afraid of him. His little body trembled in his arms. Gu Qingfeng rarely saw his big brother in a good show. He laughed mockingly. Big brother, you can't do it. Xiaobao doesn't like you. Gu Chongqing said coldly. If you can do it, then do it. I'll do it. Gu Qingfeng took Gu Xiaobao without any pressure. As expected, Gu Xiaobao stopped trembling. Gu Chongqing's face darkened. Haha. I knew it. Gu Qingfeng laughed loudly. The next second he couldn't laugh anymore, because Gu Xiaobao suddenly burrowed into his arms and opened his mouth to suck on his. Gu Qingfeng shuddered. I'm not a nanny. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1088663343. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 549. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that couldn't be found online were all available here. For the entire night, whenever Gu Qingfeng hugged Gu Xiaobao would snuggle into his arms and drink milk. Gu Qingfeng, who had just ridiculed his eldest brother, finally understood what it meant to be, a man can't be arrogant, or he'll get stabbed. The Gu brothers had dinner in Bishui Alley before returning home. Before they left, Gu Chongqing taught little Jing Kong a set of boxing techniques. Little Jing Kong learned with relish and practiced tirelessly in the backyard. He didn't even go to take a bath when Gu Chongqing asked him to. Forget it, let him play for a while. There's no school tomorrow anyway. Gu Jiao said to Yu Ya. Yu Ya said, then I'll send the hot water to Xiaoshan and Xiaoshuan's room first so that Xiaoshan can take a bath first. The order of bathing at home was from young to old. Gu Xiaobao had already taken a bath. Go ahead. Gu Jiao said. Yu Ya went to take the hot water. Gu Jiao went to the kitchen to help Nanny Fong tidy up, but Nanny Fong didn't let her do it. I'm not so old that I can't move. I'm doing this and that all day long. I'm just doing nothing. This wasn't an exaggeration. Everyone in the family was lazy. Even Gu Yan, who was the laziest, knew to peel corn and water the vegetable fields. Most of the chores at home had been shared, so Nanny Fong really wasn't tired at all. Gu Jiao didn't insist on going to the kitchen. She went back to the east room to pack up. She still had to go to the medical center later, so she wanted to say goodbye to her family before she left. Everyone else saw Xiao Heng, but he was neither in the study nor in the west room. Gu Jiao said, "That's strange, where did he go?" Xiao Heng went next door. In fact, Gu Chongqing was there as well. It was impossible for Gu Chongqing to not be alarmed when such a big thing happened at Immortal Music House. After Gu Chengfeng got on the carriage to return to the residence, He lied to Gu Chengfeng that he was going to the military camp, but in fact he was going next door. Lu Quan, go and guard outside. Don't let anyone hear you. The old chancellor said to Lu Quan. Yes, master. Lu Quan stood guard at the door. The three of them sat down in the study. The old chancellor said, Speak, what is it? Gu Chongqing glanced at Xiao Heng and said, Something happened at Immortal Music House. Is there any news from the Ministry of Justice? Yes. Xiao Heng was even more honest with Gu Chongqing than Xing Shangshu. Other than the fact that Mo Qianxue mistook him for someone else, he almost told Gu Chongqing everything, including the young master of Immortal Music House. He didn't say that Mo Qianxue was the one who told him about young master. Gu Chongqing thought that he found out through the means of the Ministry of Justice. Gu Chongqing was silent. He really didn't expect there to be such a shocking thing. I thought it was just a rumor. What is the purpose of Immortal Music House? Xiao Heng thought seriously and said, The ultimate purpose is not clear, but Jiao Jiao seems to be blocking the path of young master of Immortal Music House. Immortal Music House made a move on Jiao Jiao. Gu Chongqing's face suddenly became cold. Xiao Heng said, However, Immortal Music House made a mistake this time. The people they sent can't make a move on Jiao Jiao. For the time being, there is no need to worry about Jiao Jiao. Gu Chongqing's eyes were still cold. Is there anything I can help with? Xiao Heng said. Investigate the background of young master of Immortal Music House. All of her past, all of the people she knows, all of the things she has done. The more detailed, the better. Also investigate in secret. Don't let anyone find out. Gu Chongqing pondered for a moment and said, I will tell His Majesty that I will leave the capital to comfort the families of the soldiers who died in the line of duty in the Gu army. The old chancellor nodded approvingly. This was a good reason. After Gu Chongqing left, the old chancellor said to Xiao Heng, Is there anything you haven't said? The old chancellor knew Xiao Heng too well. Others couldn't see through Xiao Heng's emotions, but he wouldn't be so easily fooled. After all, Xiao Heng's black-bellied skills were taught by him. That group of people might be coming. That group of people? The old chancellor twisted his white brows and tried hard to think about who Xiao Heng called that group of people. After a while he frowned. You mean the people of Yan Kingdom? Xiao Heng nodded slowly. He didn't block the path of the young master of Immortal Music House. If he was the young master of Immortal Music House, he would definitely try to subdue him. If he couldn't subdue him, then it wouldn't be too late to kill him. The one who wanted his life must be someone else. For him to sit in his current position. There were many people who were jealous of him, but there were too few who had the guts to touch him and the strength to enter the eyes of Immortal Music House. It could be said that there were almost none in the entire Zhao country. Didn't Grand Tutor Zhuang want to touch him? But Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't have the guts to challenge Empress Dowager Zhuang's bottom line. At most, Grand Tutor Zhuang used a bit of power to suppress him. Those who weren't as strong as Grand Tutor Zhuang, Immortal Music House looked down on them. Those who were favored by Immortal Music House had no enmity with Xiao Heng. After thinking about it, there was only one last possibility left. The old chancellor heaved a long sigh. Alas, now I finally understand why Princess Xinyang would rather let you wander among the common people and ignore you than bring you back to the capital. The power of Shangguan wasn't something that ordinary people could contend against. They hid it so well, but the other party still smelled Xiao Heng's scent. The old chancellor said earnestly, Princess Xinyang isn't in the capital these days, so you have to be more careful. Xiao Heng said, For the time being, they don't have the guts to touch me in the capital. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made such a big scheme to lure him out of the city. There was a problem that the old chancellor couldn't figure out. The power of Shangguan wants to kill you, but they don't dare to do it too openly. What are they afraid of? Marquis Xianping? The royal family of Zhao country? The old chancellor carefully analyzed the course of events, and found that those people were becoming more and more careful. At first, when they assassinated Xiao Heng's mother, they dared to sneak into Marquis Xianping's residence. More than 10 years later, when they assassinated Xiao Heng, they only dared to borrow Prince Ning's hand. As for now, they didn't even dare to act rashly in the capital. There must be some reason behind this. The old chancellor said thoughtfully. I always feel that your mother isn't a female slave. Xiao Heng didn't have this knot in his heart, whose blood flowed in his body. To Jiao Jiao and his family, he was Xiao Heng. He didn't care about his own situation and said, it's not important. What's important now is to solve the big problem of Immortal Music House. The old chancellor hesitated for a moment and asked, did you tell Zhuang Jins about Immortal Music House? What's her attitude? Is she partial to Jiao Jiao or partial to that person? The next day, at the first glimmer of dawn, Ning'an woke up early. She first went to Huang Fuxian's room. Huang Fuxian was still sleeping. She looked at the injuries on his cheek and the back of his hand, and took out the golden sore medicine from the drawer to apply some on him. The golden sore medicine seemed to be different from the bottle she gave, but she didn't care too much about it. After that, she went to Rinshou Palace to pay respects to Empress Dowager Zhuang, and accompanied her for breakfast. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't need to attend morning court now, so she had a lot of free time. While Empress Dowager Zhuang was washing up, Princess Ning'an quietly waited in Empress Dowager Zhuang's bedroom. After a while, someone from the Imperial Household Department came and handed a tray covered with a silk cloth to Eunuch Qin. Eunuch Qin then sent the tray to Empress Dowager Zhuang's bedroom. What is this? Princess Ning'an asked softly. It's something sent by the Imperial Household Department. Eunuch Qin said. Let me see. Princess Ning'an took away the silk cloth covering it. She saw that on the tray was an imperial purple gold token, engraved with the two words protector of the country. Next to the token was a purple gold phoenix crown. This is the token and phoenix crown of the protector princess? Princess Ning'an was shocked speechless by this exquisite and peerless object. Not everyone could have the title of protector of the country. It could be said that no princess in this dynasty could bear this title. And now, Princess Ning'an was going to be crowned with the title of protector princess. How could this not make Ning'an happy? The calmness she had tempered in the frontier fortress completely disappeared at this moment. She excitedly reached out, picked up the phoenix crown, and put it on her head. Then she grabbed the token on the tray, and turned to look at herself in the bronze mirror. However, before she could see her majestic appearance, a figure wearing a royal blue phoenix robe walked over with a majestic aura. The owner of the figure took off the phoenix crown on her head. Everything happened so fast that Princess Ning'an didn't have time to react. She sat in the chair, her body and hair violently pulled. The originally exquisite bun was scattered. There was no pity in Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked down at her condescendingly, a powerful aura bursting out. This is something that Ijia prepared for Jiao Jiao. Who gave you the courage to touch it? Princess Ning'an looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang in disbelief. She didn't know whether to be surprised by Empress Dowager Zhuang's appearance or her words. Clearly yesterday. How come today? This attitude really caught her off guard. Ning'an looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang in shock and hurt. Mother! Empress Dowager Zhuang snatched the protector of the country token from her hand, and said with a cold face, Don't call Ijia mother. You don't deserve it. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/10886526. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 550. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. Ning'an wasn't the only one who was stunned by this sudden change. Even Eunuch Qin, who had just cut a plate of fresh fruits, was stunned. What was going on? Why did mother and daughter suddenly turn against each other? To be exact, It was the Empress Dowager who turned against Princess Ningen. The Empress Dowager had watched Princess Ningen grow up, and she was no different from her own daughter. Princess Ningen looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang as if she had been struck by lightning. Confusion, surprise, fear, and many other emotions flashed through her eyes. Just as her emotions gradually gathered and something seemed to be about to come out of her mind, her tears fell first. Imperial Mother, this son doesn't know what wrong this son has done to make Imperial Mother so angry. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at her coldly. You don't know? Do you really not know, or are you pretending not to know? Princess Ning'an's eyes flickered slightly. Empress Dowager Zhuang was unable to restrain her anger. Let me ask you, did you secretly pay respects to your mother? Princess Ning'an opened her mouth, and the flickering light in her eyes slowly settled down. She slowly relaxed her body, then stood up and took a step back. Kneeling in front of Empress Dowager Zhuang, she lowered her head and said, "Please forgive me, Mother." Empress Dowager Zhuang clenched her fingers and looked at her with disappointment. So you admit it? Princess Ning'an admitted in a low voice. I did go to the nunnery and I did remember Mother there. Eunuch Qin sighed inwardly. He knew about this as well. It was the night Princess Ning and returned to the palace. She secretly went to the nunnery where old concubine Jing used to live, and stayed there for an hour before coming out. No matter what, concubine Jing was Princess Ning'an's birth mother. It was reasonable for Princess Ning'an to remember her. Didn't the Empress Dowager know about it early on? Didn't she say anything? Why did she suddenly bring up old scores today? Empress Dowager Zhuang's body seemed to tremble slightly from her suppressed anger. If I hadn't heard someone mention it last night, I wouldn't have known that you were constantly thinking about concubine Jing while calling her mother. Do you really not know how much I hate her? Ning'an kowtowed and placed his hands on the cold ground, his forehead pressed against the back of his hands. This son knows his mistake. Mother, please calm down. Eunuch Qin was even more confused. Did the Empress Dowager know the night Princess Ning and went to the nunnery? How could he tell Princess Ning'an that he had just heard about it? Empress Dowager Zhuang's tone was cold. Since you want to recognize that poisonous woman as your mother, then don't recognize me as your mother. After saying that, she flicked her sleeves and left. Eunuch Qin didn't dare to stop her. It wasn't until she was far away that Eunuch Qin stepped into the bedchamber. He placed the fruit platter on the table, and helped Princess Ning'an up with his other hand. Princess Ning'an looked at Eunuch Qin, her eyes full of hesitation and guilt. Eunuch Qin, alas. Eunuch Qin sighed again. So many things have happened. Can't the princess see how deeply concubine Jing hurt the Empress Dowager? She caused the Empress Dowager to fall out with His Majesty, and took away the only princess the Empress Dowager loved. You are concubine Jing's own flesh and blood. I can understand that you can't hate her, but to remember her and pay respects to her. Aren't you throwing the Empress Dowager's heart into a millstone? Princess Ning'an blamed herself. Eunuch Qin, I know I was wrong. Eunuch Qin said, forget it. The Empress Dowager was angry because she loved you too much. If it were someone else paying respects to concubine Jing, the Empress Dowager probably wouldn't care. You know the Empress Dowager's temperament. People she doesn't care about can never hurt her heart. Princess Ning'an said, what should I do to make Mother forgive me? Eunuch Qin paused. The Empress Dowager is angry now. You should avoid her for now. Once she's calmed down, you can find a way to ask for her forgiveness. Princess Ning'an lowered her eyes. It seems that's the only way now. I can't be filial in front of Mother. I'll have to trouble you to take care of her for me. Eunuch Qin smiled. I will. Don't worry, Princess. Princess Ning'an said softly. Then I'll leave first. I'll see you out. There's no need. Eunuch Qin should go serve Mother. Yes, Eunuch Qin agreed. Watching Princess Ning'an's receding figure, Eunuch Qin suddenly said, Princess. Is there something else, Eunuch Qin? Princess Ning'an looked back at Eunuch Qin. Eunuch Qin said sincerely, the Empress Dowager deliberately used Miss Gu to anger you. Princess, please don't take it to heart. Princess Ning'an was stunned. Is that so? I thought. Imperial Mother really prepared those things for Dr. Gu? Eunuch Qin smiled and said, I serve the Empress Dowager. How can I not know who those things are made for? Princess Ningen revealed a knowing smile. It was as if spring had returned to the earth. Eunuch Qin, thank you. Eunuch Qin smiled and bowed. Take care, princess. Princess Ningen left Rinshou Palace. Eunuch Qin's smile disappeared. How would I know who those things are for? But he understood that he shouldn't draw any hatred for Jiao Jiao. Eunuch Qin went to the study. Empress Dowager Zhuang was sitting calmly on a chair. In front of her was the protector's token and the purple and gold phoenix crown. Empress Dowager. Eunuch Qin honestly recounted his conversation with Princess Ningen without missing a word. This old servant doesn't know if it's right or not. He had served the Empress Dowager for so many years. The Empress Dowager didn't inform him of everything in advance. As a capable confidant, he couldn't drag his master down under any circumstances. What should be said, what shouldn't be said, what should be dealt with, he handled it clearly. In particular, he did an excellent job of erasing Gu Jiaojiao's hatred. There was a tacit understanding between Empress Dowager Zhuang and Eunuch Qin. She knew that if she stabbed the sword, Eunuch Qin could pull it back and put it back into the scabbard. Eunuch Qin was puzzled. But Empress Dowager, why did you do this? Empress Dowager Zhuang said lightly, when it's time for you to know, I will tell you. Eunuch Qin replied, yes. As the saying went, don't guess the emperor's intentions. But the cruel thing was that if you couldn't guess the emperor's intentions, you might not be able to survive in the palace. Eunuch Qin thought about it carefully. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't tell him. Was it because she didn't trust him enough, or was it because she didn't want to talk about it? He thought it was the latter. It was too painful. Every time it was mentioned, it was like 1,000 arrows piercing through the heart. Empress Dowager Zhuang could wrap herself up in cold armor, but the heart under the armor was no different from a normal person's heart. It could be hurt and hurt. But the Empress Dowager had too many burdens on her shoulders. She couldn't wallow in her pain, and could only endure it and move forward. Empress Dowager Zhuang said, keep an eye on her and find out what she took from the nunnery that night. Eunuch Qin was shocked. What? Princess Ningen took something from the nunnery? Didn't she go to pay respects to concubine Jing? Could it be that her act of paying respects to the dead was fake, and taking something was real? Then it would explain why she went to the nunnery where concubine Jing lived, despite knowing that Empress Dowager Zhuang hated concubine Jing. Of course, the information revealed by this sentence wasn't as simple as Princess Ningen going to the nunnery to take something. It also revealed why Princess Ningen took it, and why the Empress Dowager wanted to investigate. If it was an ordinary relic, the Empress Dowager didn't need to investigate. If it wasn't an ordinary relic, then it was a big deal. Eunuch Qin was someone who had followed Empress Dowager Zhuang through the wind and waves. After experiencing so many storms, his mental endurance had naturally become stronger. What could startle him? Right? But at this moment, he couldn't help but want to curse. I've lived long enough to see it. On the other side, little Jing Kong entered the palace again. He came by himself again this time. He sat in Lu Quan's carriage. He came to find Huang Fuxian. Because of the conflict with Huang Fuxian, his grand-aunt didn't allow him to go to Bixia Hall again. So he could only go there secretly. Huang Fuxian sat by the window in a daze. Lianer was tidying up his clothes in his room. Lianer looked at him strangely and thought. Ever since the young master was injured that day, he liked to stare at the window in a daze. It's such a cold day. Isn't he afraid of freezing? He was obviously a person who was afraid of the cold. Young master. Lianer asked him. Do you want me to close the window a little? No need. Huang Fuxian said indifferently. Then I'll pour you a cup of hot tea. Lianer put down the half-folded clothes and poured a cup of hot brown sugar ginger tea. Then she turned and walked toward Huang Fuxian. At this moment, a small round head suddenly popped out of the window. Huang Fuxian's eyes trembled. He reached out his hand and pressed the little round head down. Li, what's wrong, young master? Huang Fuxian said calmly. I'm hungry. Hurry up and get me something to eat. Lianer looked at the cup in her hand. Then this tea. Huang Fuxian said impatiently, I don't want to drink it. Pour it out. Huang Fuxian was always so temperamental. Lianer didn't find it strange and didn't suspect anything. She put down the ginger tea and walked out of the room. After making sure that she was far away, Huang Fuxian took back his hand that was pressing down on a certain someone's head. The small mushroom head really grew out like a mushroom. Little brother. Little Jing Kong tilted his head to kill, cute. Huang Fuxian looked away, so ugly. Little Jing Kong looked up and down and picked up little Jiao, who was playing with snow on the ground, and said regretfully, little brother said you're ugly. Little Jiao, who took the blame for no reason. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_89642826/10884335 HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhhbqg.com Chapter 551. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. The windowsill was a little high, but little Jing Kong was a smart kid. He moved a flower pot and stepped on it. He supported himself with both hands and stepped on the windowsill with one of his short legs. Then he slid up the windowsill. Huang Fuxian looked at Little Mushroom with disgust. Little Mushroom, who didn't know that he was being despised, turned around on the windowsill. He aimed his little butt at Huang Fuxian and slid down the windowsill. It was too high. He would get hurt if he jumped down, so he had no choice but to do so. Huang Fuxian looked at the little, but that almost hit his face. It took him a lot of effort to suppress the urge to poke him out of the windowsill. After landing, little Jing Kong turned around and greeted Huang Fuxian politely again. Little brother. Huang Fuxian snorted. Ordinary people would find Huang Fuxian annoying and unreasonable when they came here. However, little Jing Kong didn't feel that way at all. On the contrary, little Jing Kong felt that he was very amiable. After all, Guyan always gave people a hard time at home. However, Guyan wasn't as vicious as Huang Fuxian. Guyan was spoiled and had a small temper, but Huang Fuxian had always been living in the dark. His heart was very obscure. He was motionless and lifeless for the whole afternoon. Sometimes he was no different from a corpse. No one liked him. Or more accurately, no one was not afraid of him. Children would cry out loud when they saw him. As for his father and mother, as long as he showed his legs, he would always see an unexpected expression on their faces. That was really an expression that made him want to laugh ferociously. Little brother, are you waiting for me? Little Jing Kong pointed at the place where he was sitting. It was very close to the window, and he could see the movements in the courtyard at a glance. What are you waiting for? Can you eat or drink? Huang Fuxian asked angrily. I have food. Here you go. Little Jing Kong took out a small paper bag from his purse and opened it to reveal a few shiny candied fruits. These are candied fruits made by my granduncle. They're really, really delicious. Huang Fuxian. Did this child not understand human language? Huang Fuxian hated eating such sweet and greasy things. He also hated beautiful children. Of course, he hated ugly people even more. In short, he didn't like anyone. Little brother, here you go. Little Jing Kong stuffed a paper bag of candied fruits into his hands. The child had just played in the snow. His fingertips were cold, but his palms were sweaty and soft. It was a wonderful feeling. Little Jing Kong retracted his little hand after giving him the candied fruit. He leaned on the armrest of his wheelchair and looked at him. Little brother, have you recovered from your injury? Yes, Huang Fuxian replied indifferently. Let me have a look. Little Jing Kong was a strict kid. Seeing was believing. Why are you so troublesome? Huang Fuxian muttered impatiently. He wouldn't take the initiative to show his injury to others. However, when little Jing Kong stretched out his soft little hand to grab his hand again, he didn't resist. He felt the soft touch of a cat's paw again. Little Jing Kong looked carefully. After a while, he nodded seriously. Yes, you're recovering well. The scab will fall off in a few days. Don't scratch it. Huang Fuxian snorted coldly. I don't need you to tell me that. Little brother, your hands are so beautiful. Little Jing Kong grabbed his clean and slender hands and didn't hide the admiration in his eyes. Huang Fuxian's hands were indeed beautiful. The joints were distinct, slender, and fair. They were as delicate as jade carvings. This was the first time someone praised his good looks, even though it was only his hands. He was handicapped. Everyone who saw his legs would have a look of disbelief. He knew that his legs were ugly when he was young. Gradually he felt that his whole body was ugly. He was an extremely ugly person. He wasn't qualified to be a disgrace. You're really beautiful. Little Jing Kong held Huang Fuxian's hand with his two chubby hands and looked at it over and over again. It was said that children didn't know how to lie. In fact, it wasn't true. Children would even believe their own lies. However, no child would tell such an unnecessary lie to a handicapped person like him. He wouldn't be able to trick him into giving him food and toys. Little Jing Kong played with his hand. He watched as little Jing Kong played with his hand. At this moment, Lian came back. Lian was shocked to see the little guy who appeared out of nowhere in the room. Huang Fuxian wanted to stop her, but it was too late. Princess Ning was nearby. She was alerted by Lian's cry. What happened? Princess Ning stood at the door and asked. Lian pointed into the room. A child. Princess Ning stepped into the room and took a closer look. She recognized little Jing Kong. Huang Fuxian subconsciously withdrew his hand that little Jing Kong was playing with. His face returned to its usual indifference. However, no one knew a son better than his mother. The moment Princess Ning entered the room, she saw a different Huang Fuxian. Princess Ning smiled and walked over. Are you Jing Kong? Do you know me? Yes, you are. Little Jing Kong had been to Renshou Palace before. Of course, he had seen Princess Ning, and knew that she was Huang Fuxian's mother. He rolled his eyes and greeted her politely. Princess Ning. Princess Ning smiled gently and raised her hand to touch his cheek. Huang Fuxian said, Mother. Princess Ning's hand that was about to touch little Jing Kong paused. She turned to look at him and smiled. What's wrong? Huang Fuxian said coldly. I'm tired. I want to rest. Princess Ning smiled helplessly and said to him, That's your fault. Why didn't you tell me that you have a new friend? Your friend just arrived. You can play with him for a while. There's no need to hurry to rest. I'm tired. Huang Fuxian's eyelashes fluttered after he said that. He quickly added, He's not my friend. His bird flew to my courtyard. He just came in to look for his bird. Little Jiu, who was teasing Huang Fuxian on his pillow, was speechless. Princess Ning smiled faintly. Since you're already here, there's no harm in making friends. Jing Kong is Dr. Gu's younger brother. The Empress Dowager loves him very much. It's not wrong for you to be friends. As she spoke, she bent down slightly and looked at little Jing Kong gently. Jing Kong, are you willing to be friends with Brother Xianer? Little Jing Kong nodded. Princess Ning reached out to rub his little head. Little Jing Kong stepped back and held his head with his two little hands. He patted his palms gently and said, I can't let other women touch my head. Only Jiao Jiao can touch it. Princess Ning chuckled. Okay, I won't touch it. She turned to look outside the door. Lian, go get the chestnut cake from my room. Yes. Lian turned and left. Not long after, she came back with a plate of exquisite chestnut cake. Princess Ning took it and personally took a piece to little Jing Kong. This is the chestnut cake I made myself. It tastes different from the ones in the palace. Jing Kong, try it. Little Jing Kong hesitated. But Jiao Jiao said that I can't eat other people's food. Princess Ning smiled. I'm not other people. I'm your grandaunt's daughter. We're family. Little Jing Kong thought about it seriously. Then you and I are family too? Princess Ning nodded. Of course you're family. It should be edible if it's family's food, right? Little Jing Kong swallowed his saliva and took the cake that Princess Ning and handed to him. Unexpectedly, before he could put it into his mouth, Huang Fuxian slapped the back of his hand. He felt the pain on the back of his hand and loosened his grip, dropping the cake. Huang Fuxian said coldly, "Who allowed you to eat our food? I'm not giving it to you." Princess Ningen said, "Xiener." Huang Fuxian seemed to be very angry. In a fit of pique, he knocked over the plate in Princess Ning Anne's hand and all the cakes fell to the ground. Princess Ning Anne's face darkened. "Xian." Huang Fuxian roared at Princess Ning An. "You can't let other people eat my food. I hate it when you're nice to others." Little Jing Kong looked at Huang Fuxian with hurt and said sullenly, "I won't steal mother from you. I have Jiao." Huang Fuxian didn't seem to hear his explanation at all. He said with a disgusted face, "Go away. I don't want to see you. In the future, if your bird dares to fly into my yard, I'll kill it and make a pot of eagle soup." Little Jiao, who was tearing down the house, suddenly felt that it wasn't delicious anymore. Little Jing Kong hung his head and pulled on Little Jiao's wing as he left pitifully. Little Jiao, who was sitting on the ground and being dragged around like a mop, was speechless. Princess Ning and looked at Huang Fuxian without blinking. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became strange. Lian felt that a storm was about to come. However, Princess Ning and only took a few deep breaths in the end. She slowly exhaled, turned around and walked out. "You go out too," Huang Fuxian said. Lian who had just stepped over the threshold, resentfully retracted her foot. Huang Fuxian was the only one left in the big room. He looked at the quiet courtyard, as if no one had ever been there. It was as if he was the only one in the vast world from the beginning to the end. This was good. This was the best. He didn't need friends. He didn't need pity. He didn't need happiness. They approached him with pity and sympathy, but in the end, they all abandoned him with fear and disgust. He was already tired of it. "Little brother." That little mushroom actually grew out from under the windowsill again. Huang Fuxian was so shocked that he staggered and rolled out of the wheelchair. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/10884283. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 552. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with inner content that can't be found on the internet are available here. Huang Fuxian fell to the ground in a very embarrassing way. When little Jing Kong slid down from the windowsill to help him, he was rejected mercilessly. He supported himself with both hands and sat back in the wheelchair with difficulty. His cheeks were red, not knowing if it was because of anger or embarrassment. There was a strange feeling in his heart, like a surging tide. He didn't know what was wrong with him. Little Jing Kong put his hands behind his back, tilted his head and looked at him cutely. "Little brother, are you shy?" "I'm not." Huang Fuxian's face was red and he said angrily. Little Jing Kong said, "Oh." Huang Fuxian thought, "What's with that tone of disbelief?" Huang Fuxian said coldly, "What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you to leave?" "No, didn't the little guy leave already? Why did he come back after saying such hurtful words?" Little Clear Sky said honestly, "I did leave, but I remembered that there is something I forgot to tell you." Little Jing Kong was a child with a lot of plans. He would definitely do what he planned. Otherwise, sure you wouldn't have been troubled every day because Guyan didn't follow his lunch plan. "What's the matter?" Huang Fuxian said coldly. "Your leg." Little Jing Kong pointed at his stump under the blanket again. Huang Fuxian's pupils shrank. His leg was his taboo. No one could touch it, no one could look at it, and no one could mention it. Huang Fuxian's aura became cold. Little Jing Kong finished his words without being affected. Jiao Jiao has a way to help you stand up again. Huang Fuxian's eyes moved slightly. There was a very short moment when his heart suddenly tightened, but it was only for a moment. Soon, his heart returned to the state of still water. He had heard such words too many times. There were countless witch doctors, and even legendary doctors in the frontier fortress who could cure him. It was laughable that the young him actually believed it. In the end, without exception, he was just coaxing him. In the end, he came to terms with the fact that his legs were not twigs. If they were broken in the winter, they would grow back in the spring. He would never have a pair of legs again in this lifetime, let alone the opportunity to stand up. Little Jing Kong said seriously. Jiao Jiao said that as long as you work hard, you will definitely be able to stand up again. Ha, hard work? Huang Fuxian smiled coldly. Even if he could stand up, it must be in a dream. The funny thing was that he had been disabled for so long that he had even forgotten the feeling of standing up. He could not even dream of that kind of realistic feeling. Huang Fuxian did not seriously consider whether the Jiao Jiao mentioned by Little Jing Kong was a swindler or not. Perhaps he was just trying to deceive a child. He said indifferently, "Don't waste your time, little brat." "I can't stand up," Little Jing Kong said confidently. "If Jiao Jiao says you can do it, then you can. Next time, I will bring Jiao Jiao to see you." After saying that, he jumped over the windowsill and skipped away. Little Jing Kong returned to Renshou Palace. Eunuch Qin went to do some errands and Empress Dowager Zhuang was alone in the bedroom. Little Jing Kong walked in energetically and looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang. He put his hands on his hips and said, "Great Aunt, you stole food again. I am going to tell Jiao Jiao." Empress Dowager Zhuang almost choked to death with a mouthful of candied fruit. Little Jing Kong came over and confiscated her candied fruit. Empress Dowager Zhuang grabbed the candied fruit box tightly. "I saved these candied fruits these days," Little Jing Kong said seriously. "Jiao Jiao said that candied fruits can't be saved. You can't eat what you didn't eat before either. Anyway, you can only eat 5 candied fruits a day. Great Aunt has already eaten 5 candied fruits." Empress Dowager Zhuang insisted on defending her candied fruits. Was it easy for her to save so much? "Give it to me," Empress Dowager Zhuang said majestically. "No," Little Jing Kong said without showing any weakness. The old woman and the young man each grabbed the 2 ends of the box and stared at each other. It seemed that an invisible contest had started in the bedroom. "Empress Dowager, His Majesty has sent some snacks over." At the door, a little palace maid reported. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at Little Jing Kong fiercely. "Let go." Little Jing Kong also looked at Great Aunt fiercely. "No." Empress Dowager Zhuang took a deep breath and slowly let go. "Okay, I will give it to you. I will give it to you." Little Jing Kong raised his eyebrows and showed a victorious smile. "Go and see what snacks are there," Empress Dowager Zhuang said to Little Jing Kong. "Okay." Little Jing Kong put the box on the table and ran to the door to take the snacks. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at Little Nine, who was sweeping the snow with his wings on the crabapple tree, and hid the candied fruit box. Ah! Little Nine took the candied fruits away. Little Nine, who took the blame for no reason, was speechless again. After the 15th day of the first lunar month of the Zhao nation, the imperial court would begin. For the upcoming imperial court, the emperor made meticulous preparations in the imperial study. He flipped through the memorials presented by the cabinet, as well as the various voices he had his spies gather from the people. Among them, there were many people who wanted to confer Princess Ning An as the first princess of the protector of the state. The people praised Princess Ning An as if she had become an indispensable force in this battle. The emperor doted on Ning An, so he naturally wouldn't dislike the people's praise of her. However, the emperor was hesitant when he thought of the ambitious Huang Fuxian. A little eunuch came to the door. Eunuch Wei went out quietly and heard the eunuch whisper a few words. He waved his hand and let the eunuch leave. Then he turned and went into the imperial study. "Your Majesty, Prince Gu wants to see you." Let him in, the emperor said. Gu Chongqing had made a great contribution, so the emperor thought highly of him now. Gu Chongqing entered in a plain brocade robe. He cupped his hands and bowed. Greetings, your majesty. The emperor said pleasantly. No need to be so polite. Do you have something to report to me? Yes. Gu Chongqing said seriously. This humble subject wants to leave the capital for a few days to visit the families of Deputy General Zhao and General Qi. They made a great contribution in this battle, and could have lived, but in order to save the soldiers under their command and the people of Lingguan City, they chose to die together with the generals of the state of Qin. This humble subject wants to personally bring their military plates back. Wrapped in horsehide, traveling 1,000 miles without returning, the only thing they could bring back to their hometowns was a military plate that could prove their identity. This was originally Gu Chongqing's plan. However, because of the incident at Immortal Delight Residence, this trip was brought forward. After he paid his respects to the families of the two, he wanted to investigate the background of the young master of Immortal Delight Residence. The emperor couldn't refuse such a request. The emperor sighed and nodded. You can go. We will reward you when you return to the capital. Gu Chongqing cupped his hands and said, This humble subject doesn't ask for a reward. I only ask that the state of Zhao be prosperous and the people be at peace, that the government be harmonious, that the people have enough food and clothing, that the men plow and the women weave, and that they no longer have to suffer the flames of war and be homeless. How could this not be the emperor's wish? The state of Zhao was a lower country. Whether it was its economy or military strength, it was far inferior to the three upper kingdoms. Don't look at how the people in the capital lived in peace. In fact, in such a bitter and cold place like the frontier, the people had to live frugally. It was not easy to even fill their stomachs. On the other hand, the state of Yan, which also had a cold ice field, was able to achieve a prosperous and populous life. The people did not suffer the pain of hunger and cold. If he could, he really wanted to go to the state of Yan to learn. He wanted to see how the emperor of the state of Yan managed to turn a lower country into the strongest country in the 6 countries in just a few decades. After Gu Chongqing obtained the emperor's permission, he left the capital on the same day. Accompanying him were 2 generals from the Gu army. Therefore, no one suspected that he had other motives. Gu Chongqing's visit today set off a big wave in the emperor's heart. He suddenly felt that his reward was not enough. After thinking about it, the emperor called Eunuch Wei over. How is the old marquis's injury? Eunuch Wei smiled and said, I heard that there are no major problems. He can get up and walk, but he is not as nimble as before. Miss Gu said that he would be completely healed in the future. The emperor made a sound of acknowledgement and said, Send someone to the Marquis Dingen Manor, and bring the old marquis to the imperial palace. Zhen has something to discuss with him. Remember, the carriage should move slowly. Do not jolt the old marquis. How about this servant go personally? Eunuch Wei asked. That is also fine. The emperor said. Eunuch Wei then personally went to the Marquis Dingen Manor, and brought the old marquis to the imperial palace. Although the old marquis could get up and walk, he could not walk for too long. His 4 limbs had been broken. Although they had grown back, they still needed to be nursed back. The emperor had him sit in the palanquin all the way to the imperial study. This was a supreme honor. After he entered the imperial study, the emperor immediately gave him a seat. Your Majesty. The old marquis was overwhelmed by the favor, and was about to stand up to reply. The emperor pressed his hand down. Beloved official Gu, please sit. You are Zhen's right-hand official. At the border fortress, your contributions cannot go unnoticed. The emperor was very clear on the role the old marquis had played in this battle. If it was not for him, Gu Jiao and Gu Chengfeng would not have gone to the border fortress. And if the 2 of them did not go to the border fortress, Zhao country would have lost an outstanding general. The border fortress would have lost another city. The plague would have killed countless citizens. The emperor would also have lost Ningen, this younger sister, forever. In short, it was all thanks to Gu Chao. Moreover, Gu Chongqing and the Gu family army were so brave. How could it not have been because Gu Chao had been captured? This official does not dare. The old marquis cupped his hands. The emperor said with emotion. Gu Chao, ah Gu Chao. You are blessed. Your grandchildren are all outstanding. There was no need to mention Gu Changqing. This child had never disappointed anyone since he was young. Gu Qingfeng and Gu Jiao were pleasantly surprised. Your Majesty is too kind. The old marquis said modestly. All right, you have been my monarch for many years. There is no need for such formalities. Today, I have summoned you to the palace to discuss with you the matter of awarding your grandchildren. Although the old marquis was a general, he was quite sensitive to numbers. But clearly, only 2 of his grandsons had gone to the border fortress. I intend to promote your eldest grandson, Gu Changqing, to 3rd-level Dingbei General, and your second grandson, Gu Qingfeng, to 6th-level Yuqi Commandant. Hearing this, although the old marquis felt that the reward was a bit too big, he also understood that returning from battle was a way to pacify the soldiers and boost their morale. It was also a strategy to win over the hearts of the people. However, the emperor's next words puzzled the old marquis. Your granddaughter is also not bad. I intend to confer her the title of Junju. The title will be decided by the Hanlin Academy. Wait, Your Majesty, you just said this old official's granddaughter? Why is Your Majesty conferring this old official's granddaughter? The emperor wanted to confer rewards to the Gu family's grandsons who had no merit. Shouldn't he start with Gu Qingfeng and Gu Yan? That girl was only a woman. What was the point of conferring her? The emperor smiled and said, The little divine doctor has made great contributions to the border fortress. Of course, I want to reward her. The old marquis was dumbfounded. She made great contributions? That girl went to the border fortress? The old marquis expressed that he did not understand at all. Yes, the people from the medical center had gone to the border fortress. She must have gone there with the medical team. What was Gu Chao's reaction? The emperor frowned slightly and said seriously, She and Marshal Tang defended Yueqing City and waited for the Gu family's army to come to the rescue. Also, she saved you. The old marquis said excitedly, That was clearly my little brother's credit. It was my little brother who fought for several days and nights in Yueqing City. It was also my little brother who went to the governor's office to rescue me. That's right, even my injuries were treated by my little brother. Just because the people from her medical center changed my medicine a few times, the credit can't be given to her. Your Majesty, if you want to reward someone, you should reward my little brother. No one could steal his little brother's credit. Not even his own granddaughter. Whoever made his little brother suffer, he would be angry with them. This time, it was the emperor's turn to be confused. What little brother? Speak of the devil. Gu Jiao originally entered the palace to pick up little Jing Kong. Knowing that she was going to enter the palace, the old chancellor asked her to bring a memorial to the emperor. She was here to deliver the memorial to the emperor. Of course, Eunuch Wei would not stop her. After all, they were not talking about any important military matters. Eunuch Wei led her to the door of the imperial study. Your Majesty. The emperor turned his head and saw Gu Jiao at the door. He smiled and waved at Gu Jiao. Come in quickly. We were just talking about you. Gu Jiao stepped in. Who knew that as soon as she stepped into the threshold, she saw the old marquis sitting on a chair. She froze on the spot. The old marquis turned his head. He wanted to see who it was. At the critical moment, Gu Jiao took out a mask and put it on her face. However, Gu Jiao forgot that this was not the border fortress. She was wearing a woman's dress. Digression. I'm too sleepy. I'll get up tomorrow to write. Good night, everyone. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/10882021 HTML Genius remembered the website address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website, zhhbqg.com Chapter 553. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. Strictly speaking, Gu Jiao couldn't be blamed for this. People have conditioned reflexes. Gu Jiao had spent several months with the old duke in the frontier fortress, and on the way back to the capital. She was used to it and had long equated seeing the old duke with wearing a mask. It was too early to wear it. If she didn't wear it, could she still be Gu Jiao? If she wore it, she couldn't explain it clearly. Gu Jiao looked at the emperor in the room with hidden bitterness. He couldn't do anything, but he was the best at removing disguises. Why did he call her? If he didn't call her, her big brother wouldn't look back. She could still have some time to think. She was too careless. The emperor looked at Gu Jiao strangely. Gu, little brother? The old duke stood up and walked towards Gu Jiao with a blank and uncertain face. He recognized this mask. It belonged to his little brother. The feathers on the mask fell off in a battle. He personally asked someone to get 2 peacock feathers for his little brother's mask. The person's figure was similar to his little brother. The only difference was that he was wearing a woman's dress. Gu Jiao rolled her eyes and held the old duke's hand. She was in character in a second. Big brother. The old duke looked at the hands. This was how they recognized each other in the frontier fortress. He looked at Gu Jiao's eyes again. It was a familiar look. The old duke suddenly became excited. Little brother. Is it really you? Gu Jiao nodded. Big brother. The emperor was even more confused. Who can tell me what happened? Why did Gu Jiao call his granddaughter little brother? Why did the little magic doctor cast a kind look and expression at him, the emperor? The emperor was in a complete mess, all right. Gu Jiao held Gu Jiao's hand tightly and asked, Little brother, why are you dressed like this? Gu Jiao rolled her eyes and pulled her hand back. She took out a small notebook that she always carried with her and scribbled, Someone is after me. I need to disguise myself so that I won't be targeted. Filled with righteous indignation, the old marquis said, Who dares to chase after my younger brother? Could it be that his little brother's military exploits were too great, and he was an eyesore to some people? How about this, little brother? You move to the marquis's estate, and big brother will protect you. Gu Jiao thought to herself, that won't do. If you move to the marquis's estate, how can you still secretly stir up trouble? Gu Jiao wrote solemnly, Don't worry, big brother. Everything is under control. The old marquis thought about his brother's skills and nodded thoughtfully. In the capital, unless it was against the Dragon Shadow Guard, no one could hurt his little brother. Even if he couldn't win, he could still run. The emperor stared blankly at this scene of brothers reuniting with each other. The old marquis thought of something and asked puzzledly, That's right, little brother. Why did you enter the palace? Gu Jiao finished writing without changing her expression and raised the small notebook. His Majesty summons me. The emperor. How can you fake an imperial edict in front of me? The old marquis pulled Gu Jiao's hand into the imperial study and cupped his hands to the emperor. Your Majesty, you summoned this subject's little brother to reward him, right? This subject knows that your Majesty is a wise ruler, and has always been clear about rewards and punishments. The one who brought my unfilial grandson to sneak into the governor's estate to save me was this subject's sworn little brother. The one who fought a bloody battle with Marshal Tang, and defended the Zhao country's flag, and the border fortress was also this subject's sworn little brother. The one who cured the plague was this subject's little brother. The one who went to destroy the nest of the remnants of the previous dynasty was also this subject's little brother. I hope that your Majesty won't wrongly give the credit to others. The emperor. The reason why the old marquis knew that those things were done by his little brother was mainly because he asked Gu Qingfeng every day where his little brother went. Gu Qingfeng couldn't fabricate things out of thin air, so he could only tell him about Gu Jiao's whereabouts. For example, Gu Jiao went to Lingguan City, Gu Jiao saved the plague victims, and Gu Jiao accidentally destroyed the nest of the remnants of the previous dynasty. However, Gu Qingfeng didn't use your granddaughter, but your brother. The old marquis was seriously injured and had been lying in the ward. His information basically came from Gu Chengfeng. In addition, Tang Yueshan and Gu Changqing didn't say anything, so Gu Jiao's little identity was tightly covered. Your Majesty, this subject has heard a little about the rumors in the cabinet and among the people. They say that Princess Ning made great contributions at the border fortress and should be conferred the title of Princess Protector. This subject doesn't mean to be disrespectful to Princess Ning, but this subject really doesn't understand where the word contribution comes from. This subject was imprisoned in the governor's residence at the time, so this subject is clear about the situation there. Princess Ning didn't cooperate with this subject's second grandson. It was he who fearlessly barged into the governor's residence. It was he who took this subject's second grandson out of Lingguan City. It was also he who joined forces with Marshal Tang to fight off the pursuers. This subject was able to return safely to Yuelu City, all thanks to this subject's sworn little brother. The one who guarded the city and fought the enemy was my sworn brother. The one who saved the princess and me was also my sworn brother. Princess Ning placed righteousness before her own family. This subject has no objection if your Majesty wants to confer the title of Princess Protector. However, the title of Princess Protector is not something that anyone can bear. As the old Marquis spoke, he didn't care how dark the Emperor's face was. He lifted his hem, endured the pain, and knelt down on one knee. He cupped his hands and said seriously, "This subject requests your Majesty to confer little brother Gu the title of Princess Protector." The Emperor. What the hell is this? The Emperor spent a lot of effort to resist the urge to pull off Gu Jiao's little vest. Perhaps it was because he was old, he was more talkative. The old Marquis rambled on for a while, but it didn't deviate from the original point. He wanted to confer the title of Marquis on his sworn brother. The Emperor's mouth twitched. You guys really share blessings and bear the burden of Marquis together. After the old Marquis left, Gu Jiao remained in the imperial study, blinking her big eyes. The Emperor drank a mouthful of tea to calm the fire and glanced at her. Don't be delusional. I won't confer the title of Marquis on you, Gu Jiao. The Emperor put down the teacup. I said I won't. Gu Jiao spread her hands. Oh. The Emperor took a deep breath and asked, "Why did you come to find me?" Here. Gu Jiao took out a memorial from her arms. The Emperor saw the handwriting and knew it was written by the old Chancellor. He casually flipped through it and put the memorial on the table. Gu Jiao said goodbye and turned to walk out. The Emperor looked at her small back, clenched his fist and gritted his teeth. I am the Emperor. My words carry weight. I won't confer the title of Marquis. Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. Oh. In the medical center. Mo Qianxue was still not allowed to get out of bed. She leaned against the bed and weaved a red rope. Little Jiangli came to the medical center to work. She looked at the red rope in Mo Qianxue's hand and said, Sister Mo, this is not how you weave a red rope. Mo Qianxue choked and said, Why not? I think you made it up like this. Little Jiangli showed her the red rope she made. Your middle finger has to hook this line, then your index finger has to wrap it inwards, not outwards. Mo Qianxue muttered. Why is it so complicated? It was much harder than practicing martial arts. Little Jiangli said considerately. If Sister Mo doesn't want to make this, we can do something else. Mo Qianxue said stubbornly. No, I want this. Little Jiangli sighed. Okay, I'll take it apart and weave it again for you to see. God knew that this was the 11th time little Jiangli had taken it apart. Mo Qianxue's hands were clearly praised by the lodge master as the god of hidden weapons, but she couldn't even weave a single rope. Mo Qianxue was angry with herself. Sister Mo watched carefully. Little Jiangli didn't sit on the stool anymore. Instead, she lay on the bed and raised the red rope with 2 fingers. However, as soon as she tied a knot, a hidden weapon broke through the window and shot toward little Jiangli's shoulder. Mo Qianxue's eyes trembled, and she caught the hidden weapon. Unexpectedly, there was knockout powder on the hidden weapon. Little Jiangli breathed it in and fell asleep on Mo Qianxue's body. This amount was useless to Mo Qianxue. Mo Qianxue threw the hidden weapon back out the window. There was a muffled sound. The hidden weapon hit something. Soon, The window was pulled open from the outside, and Hua Xiao rushed in. She pulled out the hidden weapon on the handle of her fan and smiled slowly. I was just joking with you. Why are you so angry? If I really wanted to kill her, I wouldn't use knockout powder but poison. Why are you here again? Mo Qianxue asked coldly. Hua Xiao waved her fan and smiled charmingly. I'm here to tell you that the 3-day deadline is up. When are you going to kill her? Mo Qianxue's expression didn't change. Go and tell the young master that I'll have the strength to kill her after I recover. Hua Xiao sneered. It takes 100 days to recover from a serious injury. Do you want to recover until next year? Don't tell me you're too soft-hearted to kill her. You're living a good life here. You don't have to be a courtesan, and you don't have to please those stinky men. You must be addicted to such a life, right? Mo Qianxue said rudely. When did I please those stinky men? Don't use your Hua Xiao's tricks on me. Hua Xiao's face darkened. The young master asked me to tell you that the plan has changed. Within 3 days, get her out of the capital. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1088813645. HTML Genius remembered the address of this site in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile version reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 554. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. In the medical center, Xiaoheng was chatting with the second boss in the study. Recently, Gu Jiao stayed in the medical center, so Xiaoheng came here more often. Brother Xiao, Brother Xiao. Outside the door, little Zhongli waved at Xiaoheng in a low voice. Xiaoheng looked outside the door and said to the second boss who was making tea, "Excuse me, I'll go see if Jiao Jiao is back." The second boss hurriedly said, "Go." The two of them were really loving. In the past, he and his wife were also like this. However, as time went by, he couldn't afford to pay the public anymore, so he didn't dare to get close to his wife. Xiaoheng went out of the study and went to a storeroom downstairs with little Zhongli. Little Zhongli looked outside and made sure that no one was approaching before closing the door. He whispered to Xiaoheng, "Brother Xiao, someone came to Sister Mo's room." Little Zhongli was a medicine boy of the Immortal Music House. On the surface, he was there to relieve Mo Qianxue's boredom, but in fact, he was a little spy sent by Xiaoheng. After all, Xiaoheng wasn't the person Mo Qianxue really knew, so he was a little wary of Mo Qianxue. "Who was it?" he asked. Little Zhongli shook his head. "I didn't see her face clearly. From her voice, she was about the same age as Sister Mo, maybe a little older. Her voice wasn't as young and pleasant as Sister Mo's." Xiaoheng had seen the file of the Immortal Music House case and knew that Mo Qianxue was 17 years old this year. Xiaoheng first thought of a woman who was older than her. Hua Xiao was 19 years old and was from Fu City. Of course, birthplace could be faked, so could age. However, Minister Xing had seen Hua Xiao before, so he judged that Hua Xiao was less than 20 years old. Little Zhongli said, "She drugged me as soon as she came." Xiaoheng frowned. "You were drugged? Are you all right?" Little Zhongli shook his head again. It felt good to be cared for. Little Zhongli patted his chest happily and said, "Those drugs are useless to me." "What do you mean it's useless?" Xiaoheng was puzzled. Little Zhongli scratched her ponytail. It's because I'm in good health and am especially resistant to drugs. That's what my brother said. I can hold my liquor well." Xiaoheng. "You're only 9 years old and you can already drink?" Xiaoheng said, "You're still young. Don't drink in the future." "I'm okay." Little Zhongli felt that this suggestion wasn't unacceptable. She didn't like drinking anyway. Xiaoheng said again. Tell me what happened after you were drugged. Little Jiangli recalled. After I was drugged, I was a little sleepy, so I pretended to be asleep. She drugged me with knockout pills, and that's what she said too. These words were very strange. The normal explanation would be that I heard her say that she had drugged me. But little Jiang Li's words clearly said that she knew it was a knockout pill. And then she got confirmation from the other party. Xiaoheng asked, You can recognize knockout pills? Little Jiang Li said proudly, I've been a medicine boy for so long, of course I can recognize them. I even recognize arsenic and crane top red. Xiaoheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Okay, continue. Little Jiangli said. I heard that person say that the 3-day deadline is up. When is sister going to make a move on him? Could it be that sister's heart softened and you can't do it? Brother Xiao, who is the he she's talking about? Is it you? It's Gu Jiao. Xiaoheng's gaze turned cold. It's not me. Is there anything else? Little Jiangli said, she said. Young Lord wants me to tell you that there's a change in the plan. Within 3 days, we'll lure him out of the capital. Lure him out of the capital within 3 days? The simpler it was, the more information it contained. Why did the young lord of Immortal Music House suddenly give up on killing Gu Jiao? Did the young lord of Immortal Music House think that Mo Qianxue couldn't succeed? Or did the other party think that Gu Jiao still had value? Killing Gu Jiao and luring Gu Jiao out of the capital were different in terms of difficulty. But if you put the whole thing into perspective, you'd find that the two were essentially the same. That was, both had to gain Gu Jiao's absolute trust. And if Mo Qianxue could do this, whether she killed Gu Jiao or lured Gu Jiao out of the capital, it would be something she could do. Inferring from this, it should be the latter, Gu Jiao's value. What did they want to do with Gu Jiao? Xiaoheng closed his eyes, connecting all the events related to Immortal Music House in his mind. Suddenly, a bold conjecture emerged. They wanted to capture Gu Jiao outside the capital, and use Gu Jiao to lure him out. It was that group of people. He could almost conclude that once he fell into the hands of that group of people, the young lord of Immortal Music House would immediately give the order to kill Gu Jiao. After coming out of the Imperial study, Gu Jiao went to Rensho Palace. Little Jing Kong was playing on the swing in the front yard, and Little Nine was dismantling the birdcage that the palace servants made for him on the snowy ground nearby. Recently, for some reason, he liked to dismantle the house. Jiao. Little Jing Kong saw Gu Jiao at first glance. He stopped playing on the swing, jumped down from the seat, and pounced on Gu Jiao. It was a snowy day, and he was sweating profusely. Gu Jiao wiped his sweat with a handkerchief and touched his neck. It was also wet with sweat. Go in and change your clothes, Gu Jiao said. Okay, Jiao. Little Jing Kong was especially obedient. He held Gu Jiao's hand and jumped into the inner hall. Empress Dowager Zhuang was secretly eating candied fruits in her bedchamber. When she heard Little Jing Kong's small voice, she quickly hid the candied fruits. Great Aunt. Gu Jiao entered the room and greeted Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang seriously opened the booklet on the desk and pretended to read it. Although she no longer held court, some booklets would still be sent to her. It was just that recently, the number of booklets sent to her had decreased. Presumably, Grand Tutor Zhuang was slowly becoming estranged from her. Little Jing Kong had stayed in Rensho Palace before, so his clothes were kept here. Gu Jiao found a set of clothes for him to change into. When he was changing, Little Jing Kong said to Gu Jiao, Jiao, little brother agreed. When will you go see him? Gu Jiao said, any time is fine. Is he in Bixia Hall now? Yes. After Little Jing Kong finished speaking, he was suddenly a little stunned. Jiao, how do you know that little brother is in Bixia Hall? Gu Jiao curved her lips and pointed at his shiny forehead with her fingertips. Because I have a spell that can see the thoughts in your head. Little Jing Kong hugged his little head. I didn't want to play truant. No. Gu Jiao couldn't help but laugh. Gu Jiao rarely laughed, and the time when she laughed out loud was even rarer. Her funny point was always very strange. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't laugh when she heard Little Jing Kong's words. Instead, she couldn't help but laugh when she saw Gu Jiao laughing. When Gu Jiao was done laughing, little Jing Kong's face was also completely red. I really didn't want to play truant, he said guiltily. After learning that Gu Jiao wanted to treat Huang Fuxian's legs, Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't object. She asked Eunuch Qin to go to Bixia Hall. After a while, Eunuch Qin came back and reported with a look of embarrassment. Young Master Xianer didn't want to come. He said he didn't want to be treated. Empress Dowager Zhuang said, he said it himself? Could it be that Princess Ning'an had spoken on his behalf? Eunuch Qin said, yes, he said it himself. He was very determined. Empress Dowager Zhuang sighed. Then let him be. If he didn't want to, they couldn't kidnap him. It wasn't a minor illness. They could just force a bowl of medicine down his throat. If he didn't cooperate, the doctor couldn't treat him. They couldn't use the Empress Dowager's imperial edict to pressure him. That child was obviously someone who would resist the edict. Serve the meal. Empress Dowager Zhuang said to Eunuch Qin. Little Jing Kong was disappointed. On the carriage back, little Jing Kong didn't say a word. He was in low spirits. Gu Jiao didn't know how to comfort him. She touched his little mushroom head and whispered, do you want a hug? Little Jing Kong turned around and threw himself into Gu Jiao's arms. Gu Jiao held his soft little body and stroked his little back. Why don't you want to treat your legs? Maybe he was desperate about life. He couldn't find the motivation to live. He didn't care whether he had legs or not. He didn't care whether he was standing or sitting. He even didn't care whether he was kneeling or crawling. Little Jing Kong was sad and fell asleep in Gu Jiao's arms. Gu Jiao took him back to Bishui Alley. When she was about to get off the carriage with little Jing Kong, Xiao Heng walked out of the courtyard first and reached out his hand. Let me. Okay. Gu Jiao handed the sleeping little Jing Kong to Xiao Heng. When he left Gu Jiao, little Jing Kong struggled for a moment, but when he fell into Xiao Heng's arms, he rested his head on Xiao Heng's arm and continued to sleep. Xiao Heng put the little guy back in the west room, took off his coat and shoes, and pulled the quilt over him. Gu Jiao was about to go to the clinic when Xiao Heng came out and stopped her. Jiao Jiao, I have something to tell you. The two went to the east room. Gu Jiao lit an oil lamp. Xiao Heng adjusted the wick to the brightest and lit another oil lamp. Gu Jiao actually liked a brighter room, but she didn't tell anyone. Gu Jiao sat on the chair and looked at Xiao Heng, who was adjusting the wick seriously. She suddenly felt warm in her heart. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428286/1087985337. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 555. The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao also noticed that there was a charcoal brazier in her room. It must have been lit early, as the room was very warm. She had been staying in the medical center for the past few days, and if she wasn't mistaken, she would stay here tonight as well. Did he specially light the charcoal brazier just because she wanted to talk to him in this room? Was he worried that she would be cold? Although Gu Jiao's body wasn't afraid of the cold, she still couldn't help but smile. Xiao Heng finished adjusting the wick and turned around. He was caught off guard by her infatuated look with her hands on her cheeks. Xiao Heng calmly sat down opposite Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao looked at him openly. What do you want to talk to me about? Xiao Heng automatically ignored her burning gaze and said seriously, It's about Mo Qianxue. Gu Jiao nodded. How do you know about Mo Qianxue? She didn't remember introducing Mo Qianxue to him. Xiao Heng said lightly, How can I not care about a patient who is staying in my wife's room? Gu Jiao blinked and rested her cheeks on her hands. Are you jealous? No. Xiao Heng flatly denied. Sleeping with you every day. Gu Jiao smiled and stood up. She leaned across the table and put her face in front of him. At this distance, she could see his thick and long eyelashes trembling slightly. She could also hear his nervous breathing, because of her sudden proximity. Xiao Heng was very thick-skinned in the yamen, but in front of people close to him, especially Gu Jiao, he was easily shy. He lowered his eyes to avoid her gaze, but he couldn't avoid her seductive breath. She didn't do anything, but she could still seduce him. Kiss. Gu Jiao kissed him on the cheek. Xiao Heng's body stiffened and he instinctively looked at Gu Jiao. He met her burning gaze. His heart skipped a beat as if it had been struck by something. You look so good when you're jealous. After saying that, she sat back down with a slight smile. Xiao Heng's cheeks were burning, and the places she had kissed felt like they were on fire. They were husband and wife in name, and had done more intimate things than this. However, for some reason, this unexpected kiss still teased him to the point where he almost lost control. He almost forgot what he was talking about. Xiao Heng took a deep breath and forcibly got rid of the distracting thoughts in his mind. He calmed himself down and said, Mo Qianxue is a member of Immortal Music House. Yes, I know. Gu Jiao nodded. Xiao Heng wasn't surprised. If it was a normal patient, she wouldn't have brought her back to her courtyard. It was very likely that she already knew Mo Qianxue. Xiao Heng continued. Her injuries were intentional. Her goal was to get close to you and gain your trust. Gu Jiao rubbed her chin. Oh, no wonder. Mo Qianxue's injury wasn't that big of a flaw. It was indeed the kind of injury that could have killed her. The strange thing was that Mo Qianxue had collapsed on her way back from Immortal Music House. It wasn't that she didn't suspect anything, but she didn't feel any malice from Mo Qianxue, so she didn't take it to heart. Gu Jiao said thoughtfully, If Mo Qianxue really wanted to kill me, she should have had many opportunities to do so. But she didn't. How did you two meet? You met on the street? She refused to admit that she had visited a brothel. Xiao Heng. Forget it. Even a fool would be able to guess that this lass had been to Celestial Music Abode before, probably when she was investigating Grand Concubine Jing. Women weren't allowed to enter Immortal Music House. Was this girl dressed in men's clothes? Then Mo Qianxue. Xiao Heng suddenly felt that he was being cheated on. Gu Jiao's instinct was to protect her. She blinked and said sincerely, Husband, you're so handsome. You're the most handsome. Very good. She was guilty. Xiao Heng made a mental note. He decided that he would deal with her later. Right now he had to deal with the young master of Immortal Music House. After the 15th day of the first lunar month, it snowed again in the capital. The emperor went to court, and the matter of awarding meritorious officials was a hot topic. Almost no one objected to the awarding of Tang Yueshan and Gu Chongqing. However, the awarding of Princess Ning'an was met with many different opinions. The officials in court were divided into two factions. One faction was led by Su Sifu, who wanted to reward Princess Ning'an with the title of Protector of the State. The other faction was led by the Minister of War, who objected to awarding Princess Ning'an with the title of Protector of the State. The Minister of War, Su Yuan, was the father of Su Kanji. Su Sifu's argument for awarding Princess Ning'an was that Princess Ning'an had made great contributions in the frontier fortress. Su Yuan's objection was that Princess Ning'an was the widow of the previous dynasty, and she had a son with the royal family of the previous dynasty. She didn't know the right person and led the wolf into the house. She also gave birth to the child of the previous dynasty. She was not qualified to be conferred the title of Protector of the State. The emperor's subordinates suppressed the memorial presented by the old chancellor. The memorial said that someone might make an issue of Huang Fuxian's identity, and asked the emperor not to fall out with the officials in court. The people had always sympathized with Princess Ning'an, not Huang Fuxian. If the emperor fell out with the officials because of Huang Fuxian, the people's hearts that he had worked so hard to accumulate would be in vain. The emperor had no choice but to withdraw from court. But he loved Ning'an. The more people objected, the more he felt sorry for Ningen. Why did everyone in the world bully his Ningen? What did his Ningen do wrong? Wasn't it the fault of the previous dynasty? His Ningen was also a victim. Why couldn't she be compensated? On the way back to Pure Flower's palace, the emperor almost had the impulse to insist on conferring Ning, and even if all the civil and military officials opposed it. But when he thought of Huang Fuxian's child, he endured it. The night before the deadline of 3 days, Hua Xiao came to the medical center again. Mo Qianxue could already walk a little. She sat by the window and looked at Hua Xiao with disgust. Can you not always come here? You will expose me. Hua Xiao waved the round fan and said with a smile, I just came to remind elder sister that tomorrow is really the deadline. Has elder sister thought about how to lure her out of the city? Mo Qianxue said indifferently, If I don't lure her out, what will happen? Hua Xiao said with a smile, Then elder sister will die. Mo Qianxue said coldly, Can you kill me? Hua Xiao's lips curved. I can't kill you, but there will always be someone who can. Elder sister should know the consequences of betraying the young master. Mo Qianxue turned her face. Do you still have poison? Hua Xiao asked with a smile. What kind of poison is elder sister talking about? Mo Qianxue said coldly, Like the kind of cartilage powder. Hua Xiao covered her face with the round fan and smiled. 7 days drunk. Yes, I brought it. I was afraid that elder sister would not ask me for it. 7 days drunk, as the name said. One pill could make one drunk for 7 days and 7 nights. Mo Qianxue paused and asked, She is a good drinker. Will it be ineffective? Hua Xiao handed the bottle to Mo Qianxue, then patted the bottle with the round fan and said, No, it will be my poison. Elder sister, don't worry. I am the best drinker in the capital, but I will be drunk after 1 pill. Just in case there are 3 pills in here. Elder sister, take your time. At night, Gu Jiao came over and checked Mo Qianxue's physical condition as usual. You are healing well, Gu Jiao said. Mo Qianxue nodded absent-mindedly, poured a cup of flower tea and handed it to Gu Jiao. Drink some water. Look, your lips are dry. Really? Gu Jiao touched her lips, took the teacup, and drank all the water in the cup. Mo Qianxue looked at her nervously. Gu Jiao did not respond at first. When she was packing the small medicine box, she fell down with a thud. At dawn, a carriage sped out of the city. The coachman was from Xianlu House. Mo Qianxue was sitting in the carriage. No one in the clinic noticed that she left. When they found out, they would not be able to catch up with her. Hurry up. Mo Qianxue urged the coachman. But miss, where are we going? The coachman asked. I don't know. Hua Xiao did not tell her where to take Gu Jiao, only that they were going out of the city. She was already out of the city. Did the young master's people find her? There is a post house in front, the coachman said. Mo Qianxue said, Don't worry about it, just go straight. Yes. The coachman waved his whip, and the carriage went away on the cold road. Just as they were about to reach the relay station, a group of experts dressed in gray suddenly rushed out from the side path on their horses. They lined up in a row on the official road, instantly blocking Mo Qianxue's path. The coachman hurriedly stopped the carriage. Miss, there is nothing for you to do here. Go quickly. Mo Qianxue ordered. Go to the post house in front. Go quickly. Yes. The coachman got out of the carriage in confusion. He always felt that the aura of that group of people was too scary. When he walked past them, he did not even dare to raise his head. Fortunately, that group of people did not stop him. He quickened his pace and rushed into the post house. Mo Qianxue waited until he had gone in before she parted the curtain slightly. Who are you? The leading man in gray said. The young master asked us to pick you up. Did you bring the person? Mo Qianxue lifted the curtain slightly, revealing the unconscious person inside. I've brought him, he said. Give her to us. Wait. Mo Qianxue pulled out a dagger and pressed it against Gu Jiao's neck. He frowned. What are you doing? Mo Qianxue said. I think I might not be able to keep my life. To prevent you from killing the donkey after it has outlived its usefulness, I need to go to a safe place first. The leading man in gray narrowed his eyes dangerously. Mo Qianxue said coldly. The young master needs her life. If she dies now, you will not be able to answer to the young master. As for me, it is my own business that I escaped. The young master will hunt me down in the future. It will not be your fault. The leading man in gray tightened his grip on the reins. Okay, where are you going? Mo Qianxue said, Foam County. It is 30 miles from here. An hour should be enough. The leading man in gray gestured to his subordinates. They surrounded the carriage. One of them jumped off the horse and became Mo Qianxue's coachman. They rushed to Foam County at top speed. Halfway there, Mo Qianxue suddenly shouted, Wait! Stop! She is going to vomit. She is poisoned by the 7 days of intoxication. It will be troublesome if she chokes. Those who practiced martial arts naturally understood that vomiting while unconscious was very dangerous. They had no choice but to stop the carriage. The leading man in gray rode on the horse and said to his coachman, See what is going on. The coachman turned around and lifted the curtain. A silver needle glittering with cold light flew out with a whoosh. The distance was too close and the speed was too fast. He wanted to dodge it, but it was already too late. He screamed and fell from the carriage. It's a trap. The leading man in gray drew his saber. Another row of silver needles shot out. The coachmen blocked them with their sabers. Mo Qianxue quickly cut off the reins on the carriage and rode away on a fine horse. The leading man in gray was about to order his men to stop her when the carriage suddenly burst into flames. Hostage. The leading man in gray flew up, split the carriage with his saber, and carried the unconscious hostage to the snow not far away. He faintly felt that something was wrong. He pulled down the veil on the face of the hostage, but it was not the hostage, but Hua Xiao. Yes, Mo Qianxue knocked Hua Xiao out, and made her drink the 7 days of intoxication the night she came to find her. The reason why she also made Gu Jiao drunk was so that she could leave. She betrayed the young master. She could not escape the fate of death. But she did not want to die in front of her. Mo Qianxue raised her speed to the extreme. However, she did not escape far before an arrow hit her horse. The horse screamed and fell forward. She also fell into the snow. She was in severe pain all over, including her chest. She turned sideways and spat out a mouthful of blood. Mo Qianxue. The leading man in gray got off the horse and came to her with a saber in his hand. Mo Qianxue raised her hand to use the silver needle, but he kicked her acupoint. She instantly froze in the snow. The leading man in gray squatted down, grabbed Mo Qianxue's clothes, and pulled her in front of him. He was so angry that he had nowhere to vent the anger in his chest. His gaze fell on Mo Qianxue's slender white neck, and a trace of wickedness appeared in his eyes. Immortal Music House's #1 courtesan. It is said that no man has taken her virginity. Why don't you submit to us brothers today, and let you have a good time before you die? Mo Qianxue could not speak, and could not move. She could only stare at him fiercely. The leading man in gray tore Mo Qianxue's clothes, and a large area of snow-white skin was exposed to the cold air. The leading man in gray originally just wanted to humiliate and intimidate her. He did not really want to do anything to her, but this body was too seductive. Perhaps even a eunuch would be able to act like a real man if he saw her. The leading man in gray tore off Mo Qianxue's skirt. Tears of humiliation and despair fell from the corners of her eyes in big drops. She trembled, desperate, but could not help but think. Fortunately, it was me. Fortunately, it was me. The moment Mo Qianxue closed her eyes, an eagle's cry suddenly came from above her head. Immediately after, a cold and threatening red-tasseled spear pierced through the air. With the force of thunder, it shot from the side of the leading man in gray, piercing through his head from his temple. Digression. Oh, are there any more monthly tickets? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/ /1087977781. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 556. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all available here. The man in the gray robe who had his head pierced fell sideways into the snow, his brain and blood splattering all over the ground. This scene was too terrifying. Being shot in the head by an arrow was enough to make one tremble in fear, not to mention a long and heavy red tasseled spear. All the gray-robed men felt as if their heads had been pierced as well. Their heads felt cold and their bodies froze. They had killed countless people, but they had never seen such a method of murder. It was too cruel and too horrifying. How much killing intent did one have to possess to be able to shoot such a spear? Who was it? Who did it? Everyone sensed that the situation was not good. The snow-covered official road was suddenly filled with tension and fear. Another man in the gray robe took over from the previous man and began to give orders. "Draw your swords. Draw your swords." He shouted loudly. Everyone was pulled back to reality by his voice, and they all drew the scimitars at their waists. At the same time, the sound of horse hooves that seemed to be able to break through mountains and rivers came from afar, and the snow seemed to be trembling. Everyone looked towards the source of the sound, and saw a young man in green riding a vigorous horse galloping towards them. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of the few people. With a leap, he flew over their heads. The moment the horse's hooves landed on the ground, the young man reached out his hand and pulled out the red-tasseled spear that had pierced through the man's head. Then, with a flick of his fingers, he took off his cloak and used it to cover Mo Qianshua's body. Mo Qianshua lay in the cold snow, watching the young man galloping towards her. He was not wearing a mask, and his eyebrows were cold. The eye-catching birthmark on the left side of his face was not ugly, but had a hint of coldness and evil. The young man was full of killing intent, but he covered her body with a cloak. Gu Jiao's horse did not stop. She pulled out her red-tasseled spear and immediately attacked the remaining 5 people. This group of people was not weak. Together, they were as strong as Sky Wolf. However, Gu Jiao was not the Gu Jiao from 2 months ago. Her strength had recovered a little. Even if she fought Sky Wolf again, she would be invincible. Gu Jiao dismounted, and the two sides began to fight fiercely. One of the gray-robed men suddenly thought of something and pointed at Gu Jiao. "Her. She is the hostage we want." Gu Jiao clenched her red-tasseled spear and said coldly, "Come and catch me if you have the ability." The 5 of them attacked Gu Jiao with all their might. What was surprising was that Gu Jiao's power was not as described in the letter. Logically speaking, the strength of the 5 of them should be enough to control him, but to be on the safe side, they added one more master. However, they were completely unable to gain an advantage over her. Gu Jiao hated trouble, and she also hated fancy attacks. Shadows were bloodthirsty. Her killer move was her most powerful move. The gray-robed masters fell one after another. With Gu Jiao's last stab, the last gray-robed master fell into a pool of blood. However, she did not kill this one. She left him alive. Gu Jiao stabbed her red-tasseled spear into the snow and bent down to wrap Mo Qianshua in her cloak. Her arms went around Mo Qianshua's back and knees, and she picked up her cold and stiff body. At this moment, the Ministry of Justice's carriage arrived. Xiao Heng lifted the curtain and glanced at Gu Jiao and Mo Qianshua. He glanced at the scene and understood what had happened. He hurriedly got off the carriage and called the coachman to the side. Gu Jiao carried Mo Qianshua into the carriage. Xiao Heng asked through the curtain, "Are you all right?" Gu Jiao looked at Mo Qianshua. Mo Qianshua's face was pale as she shook her head, indicating to Gu Jiao that she was fine. Gu Jiao replied, "I'm fine. Your face is covered in blood." "It's not my blood." Xiao Heng's expression relaxed. Mo Qianshua's body was shivering. The cloak was clearly not enough to keep her warm. Gu Jiao took off her winter coat and gave it to Mo Qianshua. There was no charcoal in the carriage. It was as cold as ice. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Then, a slender hand handed in an official's robe and winter coat. It was Xiaoheng's. There was only one carriage from the Ministry of Justice. Xiaoheng could not get on the carriage with Mo Qianxue in her current state. This meant that he had to ride back. In a world of ice and snow, how could a civil official like him withstand it? Moreover, he was going to enter the city later. How could he, the secretary of the Ministry of Justice, walk around in his underwear? Gu Jiao did not reject all of them, but also did not accept all of them. She only took the winter coat, and let Xiaoheng put on the official's robe. Gu Jiao got off the carriage and took the red tasseled spear back to the carriage. She said to Xiaoheng, "Oh right, I left one alive. See if you can get anything out of him." "That one." Xiaoheng pointed at the expert in gray who was lying alone on the side. That expert was pretending to be dead. Unfortunately, he could not fool Xiaoheng's eyes. "Okay, you guys go back first. Leave the rest to me." Gu Jiao got on the carriage. The coachman received Xiaoheng's orders and sat on the outside seat. He turned the carriage around and headed back to the capital. In the carriage, Mo Qianxue leaned against the wall. She gradually regained her body temperature and consciousness. She looked at Gu Jiao, who seemed to be resting with her eyes closed. She whispered, "Are you asleep?" "No." Gu Jiao opened her eyes and looked at her calmly. "How do you feel?" Mo Qianxue lowered her eyes and whispered, "It's like a nightmare." Gu Jiao reached out to her. Mo Qianxue understood what she meant. She slowly raised her hand and handed her wrist to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao felt her pulse. From the pulse, she could see that she had suffered a little internal injury and her vitality was greatly damaged. "Are you hurt?" Gu Jiao asked. "No." Mo Qianxue said. "That person did not manage to reach the last step." "Why are you here?" Mo Qianxue asked. "Xiaojiu brought me here. Otherwise, she would not have been able to find her way." Mo Qianxue opened her mouth. "I mean, weren't you drugged by me? How can you still wake up? Is your alcohol tolerance better than Hua Xiao's?" Hua Xiao was the best drinker in the Immortal Music House. So far, no one could drink more than her. 7 days of intoxication was her unique knockout drug that could even knock her out. Mo Qianxue realized something and stared at her with her almond-shaped eyes. "You didn't drink it, did you?" "Yes." Gu Jiao admitted generously. That night, Xiaoheng told her about the Immortal Music House and mentioned Mo Qianxue's purpose and the young master's order. When Mo Qianxue handed her the glass of water, she drank it on the surface but did not swallow it. She wanted to see what Mo Qianxue would do next. Mo Qianxue first put her on the bed, and then dragged out a person from under the bed. It was Hua Xiao. Mo Qianxue changed Hua Xiao into her clothes and put on a veil. At this point, Gu Jiao could almost guess what Mo Qianxue would do. The reason why she did not immediately stop Mo Qianxue was that Mo Qianxue's drug was really too strong. Even if she did not swallow it, she still absorbed some of it after holding it in her mouth for a long time. She slept for an hour. Fortunately, Mo Qianxue did not walk too fast. Otherwise, when she arrived, the tragedy would have already happened. Killing the man would not help. Mo Qianxue did not ask Gu Jiao when she began to suspect her. She was too embarrassed to ask and there was no need to ask. She approached her for another purpose. Now that the matter was exposed, she still came to save her. "Next time, take me with you," Gu Jiao said. "Don't do stupid things alone." Mo Qianxue stared at her. After a long while, she lowered her head and answered in a low voice, "Yes." Gu Jiao took Mo Qianxue back to the medical center. On the other side, Xiaoheng and the bailiffs of the Ministry of Justice brought the survivor back to the Ministry of Justice, together with Hua Xiao, who fainted nearby. Hua Xiao was drugged with 7 days of intoxication and would not wake up for 7 days and 7 nights. Xiaoheng temporarily put her in a separate cell. The man in the gray robe was taken to the torture room. There was a poison sac in his mouth, which was found by Xiaoheng and taken out. After that, he tried to commit suicide by biting his tongue several times. Xiaoheng simply gave him a little bone-softening powder. Xiao Heng was the head of the Ministry of Justice, so interrogating prisoners was not within his authority. However, when he personally applied to Minister Xing to be interrogated by him, Minister Xing readily agreed. The man in the gray robe sat weakly on the iron chair in the center of the torture room. Behind him was a scaffold for holding the prisoner, and on the walls on both sides were hung all kinds of torture instruments used for torture. The torture room was dim and there was no candlelight. There was only a stove half the height of a person on the right side of the door. On the stove was a red-hot iron. Xiao Heng sat opposite the man in the gray robe. The stove was only a few steps away from him. The light of the fire reflected on the right side of his handsome face, making half of his face look dark and half of the fire. For no reason. There was a sense of gloominess and coldness. "You leave first," Xiao Heng said to the two bailiffs in the torture room. "Yes, Lord Xiao." The bailiffs were under Minister Xing's orders. They listened to Xiao Heng's orders. Xiao Heng changed his image of a good official. His expression was cold, and even carried a trace of ruthlessness. He looked at the man in the gray robe and said, "Who ordered you?" The man in the gray robe was someone who had seen many storms, and could be considered calm. He lay weakly on the chair, his head tilted, and his body unable to move. When he heard Xiao Heng's words, he laughed coldly. "When your yamen investigates a case, don't you start by asking the identity of the prisoner? Won't you ask who I am?" Xiao Heng looked at him indifferently. "Your name is Bai Kuan from Fu City. You are 25 years old this year. Your parents passed away 3 years ago. You have no brothers or sisters and no family. When you were young, you studied at Mr. Lu's private school in Fu City for 2 years. Because of your naughty nature, you were expelled from the school. Later, your parents sent you to a blacksmith shop as an apprentice. After 2 years of studying, you were expelled by the blacksmith shop owner for stealing. You moved from place to place and finally caught the eye of a martial arts teacher. Your talent was not bad. In just a few years, you were able to practice martial arts. When you were 22 years old, your parents passed away one after another. After you buried them, you left Fu City. Since then, there has been no news of you." The man in the gray robe looked at Xiao Heng with a face full of shock. Xiao Heng walked step by step in front of him. That excessively handsome face had a pair of sinister eyes. "How is it? Am I right?" No, I am not Bai Kuan." The man in the gray robe shook his head with all his might. However, the effect of the bone-softening powder made him unable to move at all. Xiao Heng bent down slightly and looked at him closer. He said indifferently, "Is it important that you are Bai Kuan?" The man in the gray robe was shocked again. Xiao Heng took out a confession letter from the wide sleeve of his official's robe. He also took out a box of cinnabar ink. The man in the gray robe suddenly had an ominous premonition. What do you want to do?" Xiao Heng flicked the confession letter. His slender fingers opened the box of ink, and then grabbed the man in the gray robe's hand. The man in the gray robe tried to struggle, but he had been drugged with the bone-softening powder. How could he have any strength? His eyes were as big as copper bells. He roared, "You are an official of the imperial court. If you do this, you will be beheaded." Xiao Heng said, "Oh, is that so?" The man in the gray robe said, "You are crazy. I want to see your official. I want to see the Minister of Justice. You can't beat me into a confession." Xiao Heng said, "I didn't beat you. I don't confess. I didn't confess. I didn't confess. It wasn't me. You. The man in the gray robe was so flustered that he spoke incoherently. Xiao Heng ignored his struggle and complaints. He was not the kind of person who was cold on the outside but soft on the inside. His heart was black. However, there was no need for him to disguise himself in a place where Gu Jiao couldn't see. Xiao Heng expressionlessly grabbed his hand. He first pressed the ink, then pressed a bright red handprint on the confession letter. The torture chamber was a place where important criminals were tortured. Ordinary criminals would not be sent here. And those who were sent here would basically have a layer of their skin peeled off. In order to isolate the screams of the criminals, the door of the torture chamber was made to be extremely soundproof. The yamen runners in the corridor did not hear the commotion inside. About an hour later, Xiao Heng came out of the torture chamber with a tired face. His forehead and neck were covered in sticky sweat. His chest rose and fell slightly, and his breathing was short. He pretended to be calm, but there seemed to be a trace of reluctance in his eyes. When the Yamen runners saw this, they hurriedly went to inform Minister Xing. Minister Xing hurriedly rushed over. Lulang, what happened to you? Xiaoheng looked at Minister Xing with a complicated expression. I'm fine. However, the criminal committed suicide out of fear of punishment. Minister Xing was stunned. He was somewhat surprised that the other party would commit suicide out of fear of punishment. Then did he confess? Minister Xing asked. Xiaoheng presented the document in his hand, as if relieved of a heavy burden. Fortunately, I did not fail my mission. Baikuan confessed. This is Baikuan's confession letter. Minister Xing hurriedly took the confession letter and carefully read it from top to bottom, from right to left. The more he read, the more dignified his expression became. This person was indeed related to Immortal Music House. At the end of the confession letter, the young master of Immortal Music House was mentioned. It was written in black and white. Immortal Music House's young master, Zhao Country's princess, calls the present emperor elder brother. Minister Xing felt as if he was struck by lightning. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/896422_89642/1087776668. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 557. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online can be found here. Minister Xing had absolute trust in Xiao Lulang. Firstly, Xiao Lulang was just a weak scholar. He couldn't kill a vicious criminal to silence him. Secondly, Xiao Lulang had always given people the impression that he stood aloof from worldly affairs and was honest and upright. Anyone could fake a crime, but Xiao Lulang wouldn't. Minister Xing wasn't worried that Xiao Lulang would fake a crime. Instead, he was worried that Xiao Lulang would feel guilty if he saw a living person die in front of him. That would leave a shadow in his heart and prevent him from solving the case. Minister Xing didn't remember that Xiaoheng used to be a coroner. He had even dissected corpses before. Why would he be afraid of a dead person? The main reason was that Xiaoheng looked like he had suffered a blow. If I had used a heavier dose, he wouldn't have been able to recover his strength so quickly and commit suicide out of fear of punishment. I would have been able to get more information out of him. That's right. That person only told him about the imperial princess, but didn't say which princess it was. This was where Xiaoheng was smart. Sometimes it was this little bit of regret and incompleteness that made things seem more logical. Minister Xing patted him on the shoulder and comforted him. You've already done very well. If it were someone else, they might not have been able to get any clues. I'm just trying to reason with him. Xiaoheng was halfway through his sentence when a hint of hesitation flashed across his face. Minister Xing said to the two bailiffs, "You two go in and clean up. Lulang, come with me." Yes. Xiaoheng followed Minister Xing to his duty room. Do you have something to say? Minister Xing asked. Xiaoheng said, Baikuan didn't commit suicide out of fear of punishment. He didn't dare to say who the mastermind was, so he bit his tongue and committed suicide. Minister Xing looked strangely at the document that had just been placed on the table. Then this confession, Xiaoheng nodded. The confession is true. I used some acupuncture on him, but that's all he dared to say. He was very secretive about that person's name, and refused to say it no matter what. This was more reasonable. Minister Xing was puzzled just now. Why would an assassin commit suicide for fear of punishment? If he had such awareness, would he still be an assassin? Minister Xing said thoughtfully. It seems like that person's methods are impressive. That's why the assassin didn't dare to say her name. But who could it be? Since she called Jin Shang imperial brother, she must be Jin Shang's younger sister. The previous emperor had many children and 7 princesses, but only 4 were younger than the emperor. They were Princess Ning and Princess Xinyang, Princess Deqing and Princess Huiqing. Among them, Princess Deqing died of illness 2 years ago. Princess Huiqing's birth mother was the previous emperor's cousin, and was given the title of Ling Jiaoyi. Ling Jiaoyi was favored in her early years, but after giving birth to Princess Huiqing, she was a fool. Later, both mother and daughter lost favor. So was this young master of Xianlu House a fool for Princess Huiqing, Princess Xinyang, or Princess Ning'en? I'll go to the imperial palace. In addition, Bai Kuan committed suicide for fear of punishment. Yes, torture easily made people think of torture. In order to not bring unnecessary trouble to Xiaoheng, Minister Xing decided to punish Bai Kuan in the name of committing suicide for fear of punishment. As for whether he could convince others, it was up to Minister Xing's ability. Minister Xing reminded, His Majesty may summon you. You only need to remember that you didn't use torture. You used reason and emotion to persuade him to confess. Yes, Xiaoheng said. Darren, there's one more thing I forgot to say. Minister Xing asked, What is it? Xiaoheng said seriously, Hua Xiao is in cahoots with them. She is also an important witness. I think she should know something. Regarding what happened before returning to the Ministry of Justice, Xiaoheng also wrote a letter explaining the details. In the letter, he said that Mo Qianxue was still alive and approached Gu Jiao as a patient. However, he omitted the fact that the two knew each other. He only said that Gu Jiao didn't know that she was a courtesan of Xianlu House, and thought that she was just an ordinary patient. As a benevolent doctor, she picked her up halfway and brought her back to the medical center for treatment. During this time, the assassins of Xianlu House came to assassinate Mo Qianxue once. In fact, they wanted to confuse her and let Mo Qianxue take the opportunity to kill Gu Jiao. However, Gu Jiao, who didn't know the truth, risked her life to protect Mo Qianxue and even got injured. Mo Qianxue was moved by Gu Jiao's actions and gave up the idea of assassinating Gu Jiao. 3 days ago, Hua Xiao of Xianlu House found Mo Qianxue and urged her to lure Gu Jiao out of the capital. Mo Qianxue knew that Gu Jiao would be in danger this time, so she couldn't do it. Therefore, Mo Qianxue thought of a way. She drugged Gu Jiao and Hua Xiao, and let Hua Xiao disguise herself as Gu Jiao and abscond in the name of sending Gu Jiao out of the capital. Gu Jiao and Xiaoheng had their eyes on her and chased her out of the city. After that, they killed the masters and captured Hua Xiao and took them back to the Ministry of Justice. Minister Xing knew about Gu Jiao. She was the miraculous doctor of the medical center and Xiaoheng's wife. The mastermind behind the scenes seemed to have a grudge against Gu Jiao, or had a conflict of interest with Gu Jiao. Princess Huiqing could be ruled out. Putting aside the fact that she was a fool, she didn't live in the capital and had never seen Gu Jiao. She had no interest with Gu Jiao. Then, only Princess Xinyang and Princess Ning, and who had returned to the capital in the past year, were left. Sir, there's something I don't know if I should say. Lulang, go ahead. The prince consort was killed by the Gu siblings. Minister Xing was stunned in the duty room for a long time. This was a serious matter that involved the royal family. Minister Xing had to report to His Majesty first. Xiaoheng knew that Minister Xing would go to His Majesty. With concubine Jing's example, Xiaoheng wouldn't leave the decision to His Majesty alone. He wanted the whole world to know and all the officials to know. It was best if His Majesty wanted to find out who was the mastermind behind the scenes. If he didn't, then let the whole world force him to do it. Minister Xing's carriage ran into Grand Secretary Yuan's carriage halfway. His official rank was lower than Grand Secretary Yuan's, so he naturally had to get off the carriage and salute him. He didn't expect the old chancellor to be in Grand Secretary Yuan's carriage. In terms of official rank, Minister Xing was 1.5 ranks higher than the Chancellor of the Imperial College. However, everyone knew that the old Chancellor was an important official of 2 dynasties, and His Majesty's trusted aide. He was someone who could compete with Grand Secretary Yuan in seniority. Both sides greeted each other politely. Grand Secretary Yuan gave him a look and asked, "Minister Xing, you look like you're in a hurry. Did something happen?" It wasn't convenient for Minister Xing to divulge the details of the case, so he only said, "It's the case of Immortal Music House. There's a bit of progress, so this humble official is planning to report to His Majesty." The old Chancellor asked with a puzzled expression, "What kind of progress needs to alarm His Majesty? Could this case be related to His Majesty?" Minister Xing smiled in embarrassment. This humble official can't say too much. I hope Grand Secretary Yuan and Chancellor Hui can forgive me. It's fine. Grand Secretary Yuan nodded in a reasonable manner and raised his hand to indicate for him to return to his carriage. Minister Xing cupped his hands in salute. Then this humble official will take his leave. The moment he turned around, the old Chancellor suddenly cried out in pain and fell out of Grand Secretary Yuan's carriage. His fall was too technical, perfectly avoiding the coachman's hand to catch him. Minister Xing's expression changed, and he hurriedly reached out to catch him. Although he did catch him, his sleeves were also torn, and 2 documents fell out in a voluminous manner. "Let me pick them up, let me pick them up." The old Chancellor didn't wait for himself to stabilize his body, and bent down to pick up a confession letter, as well as the case file Xiaoheng wrote. He pretended to look at the documents in his hands carelessly. How could this be? Minister Xing hurriedly took the documents and folded them before stuffing them back into his other sleeve. He said with a flustered expression, "Farewell." The old Chancellor returned to Grand Secretary Yuan's carriage. Grand Secretary Yuan looked at him with a solemn expression. The old Chancellor looked as if he was struck by lightning as he said in a daze, "Old Yuan, guess what I saw?" Grand Secretary Yuan frowned. "Am I that familiar with you? Why did you call Old Yuan?" Even though Grand Secretary Yuan and the old Chancellor had both served the imperial court for many years, their relationship wasn't that close. The only relationship was that the 2 of them were friends with Elder Feng at the same time. It was just that Elder Feng and the old Chancellor were closer. The reason why the old Chancellor was in Grand Secretary Yuan's carriage today was because Grand Secretary Yuan had met the old Chancellor, whose carriage had broken down. The old Chancellor had asked him shamelessly if he could give him a ride. Could this Grand Secretary Yuan refuse? Even if he was unwilling, he had to let him get on the carriage. This was what happened after that. The old Chancellor said with a terrified expression, "I saw the confession letter from the Ministry of Justice. It said that the young master of Immortal Music House was actually the princess of Zhao country's imperial family, His Majesty's younger sister." Was the confession letter what you were holding there? Grand Secretary Yuan exposed him in a second. Old Chancellor. Grand Secretary Yuan. Also, you purposely fell down and tore Lord Xing's sleeve. Do you think I'm blind? Old Chancellor. The Master of Tea Arts had finally met his match. Old Chancellor. Anyway, I saw it. I also told you that when news about this case appeared in the capital, I will say that it came from your Yuan family. The highest realm of a Master of Tea Arts was flipping the teacup and spilling the tea. Then there was no need to pretend anymore. The corner of Grand Secretary Yuan's mouth twitched. Can you still be a little more shameless? The old Chancellor stretched his legs and lazily leaned against the wall of the carriage. I can't. Grand Secretary Yuan. How did the late Emperor accept such a shameless thing? The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_89642826/1087762110. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 558. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Minister Xing entered the palace to see the emperor. The emperor was reviewing memorials in the imperial study. Hearing eunuch Wei's report, he let someone bring him in. This humble subject kowtows in salute to your majesty. Minister Xing respectfully saluted. The emperor sat behind the desk and put down a memorial that he had reviewed. He picked up another one and asked, "Why did Minister Xing suddenly enter the palace?" Minister Xing hesitated and said, "This subject has something to report." The emperor opened the memorial. "What matter can't wait until the morning court?" Minister Xing thought, "It can wait until the morning court, but I'm afraid you won't be happy if I say it in front of the civil and military officials. Speaking of which, I met the old chancellor and Grand Secretary Yuan on the way. The old chancellor shouldn't have seen the contents of the document clearly, right? He only glanced at it. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have seen it clearly. Even if he saw it clearly as an old subject, he wouldn't publicize it." Thinking of this, Minister Xing secretly felt relieved. Minister Xing cupped his hands and said respectfully, "It's a case. This humble subject can't decide whether to say it in the court or not." The emperor asked, "What case?" Minister Xing answered truthfully, "The case of Immortal Music House." "Immortal Music House?" The emperor frowned. "The most famous brothel in the capital. Your Majesty also knows about it." Minister Xing was surprised. No wonder he was so surprised. Immortal Music House's reputation seemed great, but in the end, it was just a brothel. The imperial city had a clear hierarchy. Crossing the hierarchy barrier was harder than ascending to heaven. As long as the emperor wasn't interested in visiting a brothel, he wouldn't pay attention to it. "I've only heard of it." The emperor didn't care much. "Does a brothel case need to be mentioned in the court?" Minister Xing said with a complicated expression. "This case involves a lot of people and is related to the imperial family." The emperor said indifferently, "Which prince went to the brothel and had an accident?" "It's fine if it's a prince, but I'm afraid you won't be so embarrassed." Minister Xing understood that if he stuck out his head, he would still be stabbed. He had to say it even if he didn't want to. The courtesan of Immortal Music House died on the 7th day of the new year. The emperor had an impression of the 7th day of the new year. That was the day the army returned, and it was also the day he saw Ningen again. Why did something happen on such a good day? The emperor frowned. At first, Minister Xing thought it was just a civilian murder case. There was no need to alarm the emperor, so he didn't mention it in court. Minister Xing continued, "But after this humble subject investigated, I unexpectedly discovered that the courtesan of Xianlu House was actually not dead. She had faked her death and found a substitute to escape. Her real purpose was to get close to Dr. Gu of the medical hall." The emperor did not have much interest in the affairs of a courtesan in a brothel. When he heard this, his expression changed. "Which clinic is Dr. Gu from?" "The clinic next to the girls' school is called Miracle Hands Hall." Minister Xing was not clear about the relationship between the emperor and Gu Jiao. In order to attract the emperor's attention, he added, "Dr. Gu is Xiao Liulang's wife." Xiao Liulang was the new top scorer personally appointed by the emperor. The emperor should have some care for him. In fact, Gu Jiao was also the daughter of Marquis Ding and Fu. It was just that Gu Jiao herself had never admitted it. The emperor's eyes carried a bit of coldness. Why would a courtesan from a brothel approach a doctor from a medical hall? Minister of Justice. Assassination. Assassination. Little godly doctor. The emperor's expression became doubtful and dignified. "You just said that Xianlu House's case was related to the imperial family. Could it be that the imperial family ordered the courtesan to harm Dr. Gu?" Minister Xing did not directly answer. Instead, he took out the confession and case file from the wide sleeve that he had sewn on the way. The emperor took the confession and case file. He recognized that it was Xiao Liulang's handwriting. Xiao Lulang held the position of Minister of Justice. In Gu Jiao's words, he was Minister Xing's secretary and spokesperson. If he did well, he could become the Secretary General of the Ministry of Justice. It was normal for him to write the case file and confession. Of course, not all confessions were written by officials of the Ministry of Justice. A portion of the confessions were personally written by criminals. The confession clearly stated that Bai Kuan was illiterate. Therefore, Minister of Justice Xiao Lulang wrote it on his behalf. After the emperor finished reading it, he slapped the confession on the table. Preposterous. Who interrogated the criminal? Minister Xing, in order to avoid new problems, simply said to the emperor. It was this official who personally interrogated him. Xiao Lulang temporarily wrote on the side. The position of Minister of Justice's official was usually filled by the Yamen's litigation master. However, if the litigation master was not in the Yamen, Shi Yi could be appointed by the Minister of Justice. Xiao Lulang came from Hanlin Academy. It was not to the extent that he did not even have the qualifications to be an official. If it was someone else who was trying the case, the emperor was afraid that he would re-examine the case. However, Minister Xing and Xiao Lulang were officials that the emperor had personally promoted. The emperor still trusted the two of them. The emperor did not know much about Xiao Liulang's ability to solve cases. If it was only Xiao Lulang trying the case alone, the emperor was afraid that he might have been deceived. However, Minister Xing was a veteran at solving cases. He would not be fooled by a thief. Could it be that it was really done by a princess of the imperial family? But wasn't this very absurd? She called the present emperor older brother. In other words, the young master behind the scenes of Immortal Music House was his younger sister. He only had 3 younger sisters, Ning'an, Xianyang, and Huaiqing. Of these 3, no matter which one, it did not seem like they were suspicious. There was no need to mention Ning'an. She was such a kind and pure person. How could she associate herself with the power of a brothel and do something that would harm the little godly doctor? Huaiqing was a fool. She did not have this ability. It could not be Xianyang. Xianyang was indeed a powerful character. Among so many princesses, she did not have the protection of her mother, nor did she have the special favor of her father, but she had never suffered at the hands of anyone. She had also received the great marriage that her father had prepared for her before he passed away. She was indeed a woman with skill. But she had no reason to frame the little godly doctor. Minister Xing ventured to ask, "Does your majesty have any clues?" The emperor unhappily said, "What clues do I have? Are you sure you have not been deceived by the murderer?" Although the emperor trusted Minister Xing's ability, he would rather suspect that Minister Xing's judgment was wrong if he had to suspect his own sister. Now that things had progressed to this point, Minister Xing had a guess in his heart. It was just that there was no conclusive evidence at the moment. Xiao Lulang could tell him that the prince consort was killed by the Gu siblings. This was the internal investigation of the case by the Ministry of Justice, providing effective clues to speculate on the motive of the real murderer behind the scenes. But he could not say this to the emperor. Just as Minister Xing was thinking about how to speak to the emperor, Eunuch Wei's voice came from outside the imperial study. "Princess Ning'an, why are you here?" "I stewed some ginseng soup for my royal brother. Is he inside?" He was inside, but she did not know if it was convenient. "Ning'an, come in," the emperor said. Eunuch Wei smiled and stepped aside. "Princess, please." Princess Ning'an carried the food box in one hand and slightly lifted her skirt with the other as she stepped into the imperial study. Minister Xing turned and bowed to Princess Ning'an. "This is..." Princess Ning'an looked at Minister Xing in astonishment. The emperor introduced, "This is the minister of the Ministry of Justice. His surname is Xing, so it is Lord Xing." Princess Ning'an nodded. "Sorry for the lack of manners." Minister Xing bowed with his hands clasped in front. "I do not dare." Princess Ning'an said embarrassedly, "It seems that I have come at a bad time." If I had known that my royal brother was discussing official business with the ministers, I would have come later. The emperor said, "It does not matter. It is just a groundless case. Since you are here, you can take a look." As the emperor spoke, he handed the confession and the file to Princess Ning, and Princess Ning placed the food box on the table and took the file to read. While she was reading the document, Minister Xing was secretly looking at her. The more Princess Ning read, the more surprised she became. In the end, she frowned. It was actually someone from the imperial family who tried to kill Dr. Gu? But why? Minister Xing's heart flashed with a trace of doubt. Princess Ning did not look guilty at all. Could it be that they had guessed wrong? Logically speaking, it was not enough to just have a motive. They also needed the time and evidence of the crime, commonly known as witnesses and material evidence. The emperor snorted. "You also think it is absurd, don't you?" Ning suddenly lowered her eyes and smiled bitterly. "His Majesty only has 3 younger sisters, and among the 3 of them, only I have interacted with Dr. Gu the most. The prince consort died at the hands of her and Gu Shizhi, so it seems that I am the most suspicious." The emperor's face darkened. "Nonsense! How could you do that? In my opinion, it is obvious that someone has bad intentions and wants to slander the imperial family." Princess Ning sighed. "But didn't the murderer confess?" The emperor coldly said. "The murderer is not necessarily lying. Or he didn't lie, but someone pretended to be a princess and approached him." Princess Ning slowly turned her head and looked at Minister Xing. "Does Minister Xing think that there are these 2 possibilities?" Minister Xing opened his mouth and weakly sucked in a breath of cold air. "Before the truth is out, all hypotheses are possible. By the way, there are 2 other witnesses mentioned above. One is the courtesan of Xianle House who faked her death, and the other is also a girl from Xianle House, called..." Princess Ning didn't seem to remember the name. She looked at the document and said, "Hua Xiao." As she spoke, her eyes fell on Minister Xing's face again. "Minister Xing, where are these 2 witnesses now? Can they testify in court?" Based on the one-sided statement of an assassin, it is somewhat arbitrary to conclude that Xianlu House colluded with the imperial family. What do you think, Minister Xing? Princess Ning's eyes were very gentle, but for some reason, Minister Xing's forehead was a little cold. He composed himself and said, "Princess Ning is very right, but these 2 witnesses can't testify in court now." "Why?" Princess Ning asked softly. Minister Xing said, "Hua Xiao was drugged and will wake up in 6 or 7 days. The other girl called Mo Qianxue was seriously injured and is being treated in the medical hall. According to Minister Xiao, her condition is not good. Otherwise, according to the normal procedure, Mo Qianxue would be taken back to the Ministry of Justice for detention." Princess Ning sighed thoughtfully. "One was drugged and the other was injured. What a coincidence. Minister Xing, they are important witnesses in this case. You must protect them well. Don't let them be killed, or the truth of this case will never see the light of day." Minister Xing subconsciously glanced at Princess Ning when he heard this. Princess Ning smiled at him frankly. Minister Xing lowered his eyes, frowned and saluted. "Princess is right, I will definitely send more people to protect them." After leaving the palace, Minister Xing returned to the Ministry of Justice. Xiao Heng's room was behind Minister Xing's. Hearing the noise, Xiao Heng put down the pen in his hand and went to Minister Xing's room. "Minister." Minister Xing fell into a chair tiredly and told Xiao Heng about the conversation in the imperial study. "It really is flawless. Did we suspect the wrong person? Is the murderer actually Princess Huiqing or Princess Xinyang?" Xiao Heng was not surprised by this development. If the other party didn't even have this kind of method, they wouldn't have gotten to where they were today. He was very glad that he didn't put his chips on the emperor. Xiao Heng said, "It's not Princess Xinyang." Minister Xing looked at him strangely. "How do you know?" "I often go to the medical hall," Xiao Heng said. "Princess Xinyang contracted a heart disease a few years ago, and only Dr. Gu can treat her illness. She hasn't recovered yet, and is still taking the medicine Dr. Gu gave her. She won't kill Dr. Gu at this time." Minister Xing had heard that Princess Xinyang had suffered from a heart attack due to the loss of her beloved son. Back then, he had heard that she had listened to the imperial physician's advice and left the sad capital to recuperate at Fengdu Mountain. Princess Huiqing? Minister Xing shook his head decisively. Someone couldn't have used the name of an imperial princess, right? Xiaoheng suddenly said. Actually, it's fine if she didn't warn you. Minister Xing didn't understand. What do you mean? Xiaoheng smiled faintly and said, Minister, Princess Ning'an is right. You have to send more people to keep a close watch on the medical hall and the Ministry of Justice's prison. Don't let anyone have a chance to silence them. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/1087521994. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 559. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. In the imperial study, Princess Ning'an sat next to the emperor with a gloomy expression. The emperor patted the back of her hand and said, Don't take it to heart. The truth of the case will come out one day. Princess Ning'an whispered, I occasionally wonder if I shouldn't have come back. That year, I was blind and didn't listen to my brother and mother's advice. I insisted on marrying to the frontier fortress. As a result, I entrusted it to the wrong person and caused hundreds of thousands of people to suffer from war. I also caused so many soldiers to lose their lives. When Your Majesty proposed to confer me the title of Princess Protector, I actually understood that I was not qualified. The emperor looked at her. Ning'an, Princess Ning'an met his gaze. Imperial brother, let me finish. The emperor nodded helplessly. Okay, you say it. Princess Ning'an said with self-blame. I was accepted by the royal family because of my brother's great kindness. Please don't mention the matter of conferring me. The emperor said earnestly. This is not your fault. With or without you, the remnants of the previous dynasty will stir up trouble in Zhao country. You are just a pitiful person who was used by them. Even if it wasn't you, it would be someone else. Don't blame yourself anymore. Your words have reminded us. Could it be that we have doted on you too much, causing some people to be jealous? That's why they were dissatisfied and caused so much trouble? Princess Ning'an didn't say anything. The emperor comforted her. I have my own ideas about this matter. I will not let you be wronged. Just pretend that you didn't hear anything today. I will find out the truth. Princess Ning'an's eyes were a little red. When the emperor saw her like this, he couldn't help but think of when she was young. Ning'an was a lively and active child. She wouldn't cry like a normal little girl. When she was wronged, she would find a place where no one was around and sit there quietly, trying her best to hold back her tears. Every time he found Ning'an and made her happy. Thinking of the past, the emperor felt even more sorry for Ning'an. He didn't know how many times she hid in a corner, and secretly felt sad when she was alone in the frontier fortress. Did anyone find her? Did anyone feel sorry for her? The emperor called eunuch Wei. Go to the Ministry of Justice and tell Minister Xing to keep his mouth shut and not reveal any information about this case for the time being. Yes. Eunuch Wei accepted the order and left. However, it was too late. On the way to the Ministry of Justice, Eunuch Wei heard people discussing this matter. Two little brothers, what were you talking about just now? Eunuch Wei lifted the curtain of the carriage and called out to the two young men by the roadside in a good-natured manner. Since it was a secret, his identity could not be easily revealed. He was wearing the clothes of an ordinary master. The two of them thought that he was a rich old man from the capital, so they told him about the news they heard in the tea house. I heard that Immortal Music House colluded with the royal family and killed the soldiers who returned from the frontier fortress. Is there such a thing? Old Chancellor was well aware that the speed of rumor spreading was completely dependent on how ridiculous the rumor was. It didn't matter if it was exaggerated or not. As long as it was widely spread, it was fine. Who did you kill? Young Master Gu Jiejun. Gu Changqing. Cough cough. Eunuch Wei almost choked himself to death. How was it related to Gu Changqing? Wasn't it said that the person who was assassinated was Miss Gu? Moreover, it was an attempted assassination. Is there a mistake? Young Master Gu went to visit the families of the soldiers. They were killed on the way out of the city. That place was not far from Feng County. Someone came out from the nearby relay station and saw that the snow was full of corpses and bloodstains. It was obviously Miss Gu who fought with the assassins from Immortal Music House. The people who died were all from Immortal Music House. Who made this up? Too tragic, too tragic. Young Master Gu was bravely killing the enemy at the frontier fortress, but when he returned, he was plotted against by the royal family. They were afraid that young Master Gu's meritorious service would overshadow the master, so they wanted to get rid of him after he had outlived his usefulness. He didn't die in the hands of the enemy, but died in the hands of his own people. This is really chilling. It seems that he didn't die and escaped. Then young Master Gu will have to hide from now on. This was the first version that Eunuch Wei heard. There was also a second one. The contents of the first two stories were similar. They were all about how Gu Changqing was attacked when he left the city and how Immortal Music House colluded with the imperial family. However, it wasn't the imperial family that killed the donkey after it had outlived its usefulness. Instead, it was the imperial family's princess who fancied Gu Changqing and wanted to recruit him as her prince consort. Gu Changqing didn't agree and angered the princess. Thus, he suffered from the other party's crazy revenge. What kind of nonsense is this? Eunuch Wei felt a headache coming on. The third story was the one that gave Eunuch Wei the most headache. The victim was still Gu Changqing and not Gu Jiao. I heard that it was the remnants of the previous dynasty. Weren't the remnants of the previous dynasty all exterminated? It seems that some of them escaped the net and infiltrated the capital. They colluded with Immortal Music House to take revenge on young Master Gu and the Gu Jiejun. It's a pity that young Master Gu is seriously injured and his life is uncertain. And I also heard that the imperial family has a spy. The remnants of the previous dynasty is hiding in the imperial palace. Hey, I've heard of something here. When the prince consort was killed by young Master Gu, Princess Ning'an pleaded with young Master Gu to let the prince consort fend for himself in the snowy mountains. However, young Master Gu ignored Princess Ning'an's opposition and took the prince consort's life on the spot. Could it be? Eunuch Wei helplessly looked at the sky. It's over, it's all over now. Once the news was spread out, it wouldn't be easy to take it back. Moreover, there was a good saying, it's better to let it out than to block it. The more the emperor forbade the people from talking about this matter, the more heated the discussion became. If the emperor was a tyrant, then it would be fine. If he killed hundreds of people, then no one would dare to talk nonsense. But he wasn't. This led to the matter continuing to ferment. By the evening of the second day, almost the entire capital had heard that Immortal Music House colluded with the imperial family to assassinate Gu Changqing. Gu Changqing wasn't in the capital right now. Even if the emperor wanted to call him out to clarify the truth, he couldn't. The emperor could choose to have Gu Jiao stand out and say that the person who was assassinated was her. But that would mean that the case of Immortal Music House's assassination was confirmed. Moreover, was there a big difference between assassinating Gu Jiao and assassinating Gu Changqing? The only difference was the speed at which it spread. As the young master of the Gu family army and the heir of Marquis Ding, and Gu Changqing's reputation was even greater in the capital. Gu Jiao was too low-key. Her name wasn't enough to attract attention. But the essence of the matter was the same. Moreover, This matter wasn't a matter of whether the victim was Gu Jiao or Gu Chongqing. Rather, it was a matter of which member of the imperial family was the mastermind behind the scenes. Princess, the tea spilled out. Inside the warm room of Baixia Hall, Liana reminded. Princess Ning'an looked at the tea spilled all over the table. She put down the teapot that had been filled for an unknown amount of time and said, "Wipe it off." Yes. Lian brought over a cloth and wiped away the water stains on the table. Princess, you have been restless these past 2 days. Did something happen? No, it's nothing. Princess Ning'an said. Baixia Hall was well protected by the emperor. She hadn't heard any random rumors. Lian only thought that her master was upset because of Huang Fuxian. She comforted. Don't worry about Gongzi. He's just throwing a tantrum. When he grows up and becomes more sensible, he'll know how to be filial to you. Princess Ning'an said. Lianer, if one day you are taken away, will you betray me? Lianer solemnly said. Of course not. Lianer's life was saved by Princess. Without Princess, there would be no Lianer. Lianer will not betray Princess. That's right. My life is mine. How could I betray me? Princess Ning'an recovered her usual vigor. She smiled and said, Go to the small kitchen and see how the soup for Imperial Mother is coming along. Lianer went to the small kitchen. When she returned, she had a food box in her hands. I've packed it for you. Princess Ning'an took the food box and went to Renshou Palace. She never thought that Xiaoheng would also be there. Princess Ning'an looked at Xiaoheng in Empress Dowager Zhuang's study. Empress Dowager Zhuang said, He's the Lulang that Ijia mentioned to you. Ning'an hasn't seen Lulang yet, right? Princess Ning'an was stunned and smiled slightly. Ah yes, I haven't seen him. Xiaoheng stood up and saluted. Princess Ning'an nodded in return. Empress Dowager Zhuang sighed to Princess Ning'an. Didn't I tell you not to cook? Princess Ning'an smiled and put the food box on the table. This is the soup made by Baixia Hall's chef. Empress Dowager Zhuang motioned for Eunuch Qin to take over. This servant will do it. Eunuch Qin opened the food box from Princess Ning'an's hands and took out the soup inside. Princess Ning'an smiled. Then I'll leave first. I'll come to pay respects to Imperial Mother tomorrow. Princess Ning'an left the study and heard Empress Dowager Zhuang say to Xiaoheng, Continue. Xiaoheng said, No, that's all the rumors I heard from the people. Empress Dowager Zhuang said, To quell the rumors, the only way is to let the witness speak. Did the witness wake up? Xiaoheng, she woke up. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Wasn't she drunk for 7 days? Why did she wake up so soon? Xiaoheng. Jiao Jiao has a hangover medicine in her hand. She woke up in the morning, but she could only speak in the afternoon. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Did she confess the mastermind behind the scenes? Xiaoheng shook his head. Not yet, she refused to say. Did you use torture? Yes, all the punishments that can be used have been used. Her mouth is very tight. Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. If the hard method doesn't work, then use the soft method. If the soft method doesn't work, then use rape. I don't believe that Xianle House is full of tough bones. You go and bribe someone, let her poison Hua Xiao in the name of visiting Hua Xiao. Say that it's a snack given to her by the young master. Hua Xiao won't not understand. Princess, your handkerchief. In the courtyard, a little palace maid looked at the lost in thought Princess Ning'an. Princess Ning'an looked down at the torn handkerchief in her hand and smiled warmly. It was scratched by the branches. I'm thinking about what to do. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1087511721. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. ZHHBQG. Com that you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.